Well, I'd like to say a warm welcome to today's edition of La Vuelta, but it's quite nippy. 17 Celsius with a bit of fog. We're just hoping that some of that will burn off by the end today. Nonetheless, it's been great racing so far. It's only stage 3 of this terrific event. Jesper Philipsen produced a sensational burst of speed to pip Fabio Jakobsen and claim the second stage of the Vuelta. The Belgian jumped off the wheel of Michael Matthews and held off a late surge from Jakobsen to take the stage into Burgos. Boy, was he pleased about that.
Jasper Philipsen, winner of the stage. Jasper, how does that feel, wearing the jersey and being the winner in the stage?
Yeah, it's really nice. Of course, it's the first sprint, so it's automatically you have the jersey, so that's something nice as well.
And what is that with your team? Every time in a Grand Tour, second stage is Giant Alpecin or Alpecin-Fenix.
Yeah, it's really cool that all this Grand Tours this year work out like this in the first sprint and in the second stage. So yeah, for sure it will be really hard the next year to do the same. But yeah, I think this just show that the team is directly from the start of the Grand Tour motivated, and we're there and don't make mistakes, and yeah, that just shows the dedication of all the riders in the team. Yes,
with more sprint stages definitely coming up. You wearing that green jersey, how important is that green jersey for you in the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, we'll see. It was not the goal before the start of the Vuelta, so yeah, we just see for sure if you win, you get points. So I think that will be the main thing, to try to win, and then automatically you get a lot of points as well.
Well, 3 riders at the top of the green jersey classification, I must say, with 50 points apiece. Philipsen edging Jakobsen, Matthews, Modular and Aaron Burrow, who had been nursing green, level on points, but Philipsen, having beaten him in the sprint, holds the jersey for now.
For us, it's an unbelievable day again, of course. We were in the second stage in the Giro, the second stage in the Tour de France, and now also the second stage. So when I go to the casino tonight, I put on number 2.
Yes, I can bet on that. It's a triple, and again today then with Jasper Philipsen. How was that sprint? How did you see that sprint?
He was already very motivated this morning, and of course when you win, you always win with a plan, but the plan was exactly how we took it this morning in the bus. And yeah, like I said, he was very motivated, and I think it's also a very important win for him, because he was always so close in the Tour de France. Second, third, he was always there, and now directly number 1. That's very good for him and for his morale and his mindset.
Tell us a little bit of the excitement you feel in the car, seeing him win.
Yeah, I was again with Frederik Willems in the car, and in the Tour de France he hit me twice so hard on my chest. So the first thing, I was directly defend myself that he not hitting my chest again. But yeah, it was crazy in the car, of course. Especially, yeah, we see always, yeah, after in the Tour de France when he was losing the sprint, we always try to motivate him and start believing in himself again. And yeah, like today, it's very important for him, and I'm so happy for him.
So the Vuelta is already successful, and still 3 weeks to go, Michel.
Yeah, and we have a very nice young team here, with a lot of guys first Tour de France. We have Jay Fine. He crashed today, not so. Yeah, his hand is not so good, but he can move on. But yeah, we hope he can surprise more. We have a lot of good riders here.
They have some very good riders, and we've got a good day today ahead of us. Slightly milder weather conditions. They've tumbled down from around 35 Celsius to 24. So it's at least at the start. Of course, quite chilly at the end. 17 Celsius recorded at the moment. We'll see. What stage 3 got for us then? A couple of climbs early on. One of them categorised, I must say. We have 2 more tests late, but of course it's a bit like waiting for Christmas. It suddenly comes at a big rush at the end, and it's going to be a bit like that today. So a long intro, if you will, and then that kicker at the end, which is very nasty. We're talking maximum gradients of 18%, which should find some big time gaps today.
With David de la Cruz from the Team UAE, who had always good results on Picón Blanco at the Vuelta Burgos in the last years. Can you explain us the specificities of this climb in details?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard climb. As you can see on the profile, it's always a climb where the wind can play an important role, because normally there on the top you can have a really strong winds over 30 km an hour. Depends from where it's coming, can change a lot the tactics of the race, because when it's a headwind on the last part, I mean, if you are covered on the shadow of other riders, make a big difference. For me, it's a climb that really starts after the middle part, where it's really hard. I mean, always we can see that you start full gas, then you take it easy, and then you have this middle part that it's really steep, and then from there to the finish, it's where normally the race starts. And it's gonna be like that today, I think. And then, depending on the wind, we will see more or less movements.
A lot of riders very familiar with today's course. We'll see how they roll. Primož Roglič is our leader by a margin of just 4 seconds over Alan Buru. Michael Matthews up there, but this will all change at the end of today. Apparently Roglič hyper motivated to hold on to red. And so they sent us off this morning. Apparently the deflating air bridge that is soon to be banned, of course, of yesterday, I think of the past. It was a pacey old start, I must say, and it took a while for us to establish our breakaway. 8 riders up the road, but check this out. Temperatures, well, I said to you it was 17 Celsius. It turns out it's only 11. That's at the finish. We've got fog, of course, on the high ground. Hugh Carthy here will be hyper-motivated today, especially after being caught behind the crash yesterday, which also hampered Adam Yates, and I think he will be also looking to get some time back today. Chase duties have kind of fallen to Jumbo-Visma so far, and I guess you'd expect that. Nobody really wants to pick up the cudgel just for the time being, but the gap's gone up, and it's a handsome one at the moment for our breakaway, and 7 minutes and 16, that's quite a gap to be bridged. And if you look back down over the terrain here, no sight of the chasers, and that's because the gap is a sizable one, and indeed it's a quality breakaway we've got as well. Lilian Carmejean is here for AG2R Citroën, just coming to the front right now. He having taken a stage in the Tour de France a few years ago, not that many, I think it was 4 years ago he got there, and do you remember he was cramping up in that amazing run of his, and just about held on. We were all cheering for him. It's been a bit quiet ever since. Tobias Bayer is here from Alpecin-Fenix, who of course had a great day yesterday with Jesper Philipsen. He'll be hoping to pick up some of the intermediate sprint points when we get there. He was 4th in the youth classification in Burgos, by the way. We have Jetse Bol, who's gone well on the climbs, and climbs like this in the past. The nearest comparison we've had on the Vuelta would have been Havalambre back in 2019. He finished second behind Milano that day. The man who just kept coming back. It was like being chased by a horsefly, but he got there in the end. Amos Catus here from Cairo Rural as well. He was 3rd on the Ruta del Sol this year, so he's on good form. We have Soto from Euskaltel Euskadi. You'd always expect them to be up there. We'll talk more about them in detail a little bit later. Ryan Tara May is here for Wanty Gobert. We have Kenny Elissonde, the evergreen Elissonde is in the front group for Trek Segafredo, and UAE Team Emirates with Joe Dombrowski also there. As you can see, it's a moderately relaxed atmosphere back in the peloton at the moment. It really is on block for the time being. No touches of wheels, you'll be pleased to know. And everyone's sort of leaning on Jumbo-Visma at the moment. It's one of those days where the sun's shining, the breeze is blowing as well, as you can see. It's a headwind for much of the day, by the way, as we head inexorably north. No great panic for the time being, and it looks like they may well be winding us back in by the time, the breakaway I should say, by the time we get to the Picón Blanco that defines the day. Doesn't matter what has gone before, it's all going to be sorted out on that rather testy climb right at the very last. 7.5 kilometres of categorised area, despite the fact we've got 2 little peaklets before we get to the climb proper. But with maximum gradients towards the top of around 18%, it's going to be one heck of a test, and it will bite, you can be sure. 96.3 kilometres to go, 7 minutes and 34. This is a sizable gap that we have posted by this breakaway. it's a cohesive unit. Everyone seems to be working nicely together. A bit like me and Sean Kelly. Hello, Sean. Today, we had some terrible temperatures, Sean. It's much more pleasant today, starting off at 24, might finish with 11 Celsius, so have your cold gear ready, I guess.
Yes, well, I think for the downhill they will need a cold gear, but on the uphill with the gradients we've got on this the Picón Blanco, it's going to be a big test for everyone, and yeah, the cooler conditions will be welcomed by some, because the weather forecast we were talking about yesterday and the day one, it was frightening, the temperatures they were giving. So those conditions are perfect here for biking, and on the final climb I don't think that coolness will bother anybody. They'll probably welcome more than anything else. It's just that after the race buses are not allowed up there, so they will have to get down off the climb, but that is for later in the day. But this is getting to be an interesting day now, 7.5 plus minutes here and 95 k's to go. This is always a situation early in the race when riders are not that far down in the GC, and we have a lot of men in this 8-man breakaway, which are really not far away at all. I think 29 seconds is the closest man, Soto. So they're thinking now, well, if Jumbo-Visma do not really push on, and it does look like they are going to do that, they're just setting a good strong pace here. We could see the jersey being offloaded, which we talked about many times in big tours, although Primož Roglič said he wants to hold on to the red, but yeah, depending on situation, if it's going to be too difficult, they're not going to kill the team today, because they have other ambitions later in this race for Jumbo-Visma.
Some bad news there, Sean, about Catafort, a non-starter today after of course the crash yesterday. Took himself off to hospital, and it turns out he has a broken collarbone, which is a real shame. First rider out. It could have been a lot worse yesterday, couldn't it? It was quite bad time-wise for some of the main contenders where that crash came.
Yes, well, the problem is in the big races, the 3-week tours, everybody is very nervous of the crashes, and yesterday once again we talked about that many times during that slow stage, which was it was just simmering away for so many kilometres there, and then in the end you get into that final 20 kilometres, maybe 30 kilometres when the race starts getting a bit hectic, but it never got really that crazy yesterday until the final number of kilometres, and then we had that crash just before we got to the 3 kilometre mark to the finish, unfortunately for some of the GC men, which were caught behind it. And we had Yates, Hugh Carty, Sivakov. There was a lot of riders that lost a lot of seconds there because of that crash in the final, but that's always the risk in the earlier days of a big stage race.
Just checking the average speeds at the moment, 40 kilometres per hour today for everybody. But our breakaway at the moment is just nudging up to 80 on one of these little descents. The wind is blowing, it's a bit of a headwind, but we're protected in the gullies here near the Tesla mountain range. Nothing to do with electric, but probably named after the great man, who knows. 92.9 kilometres to go until we get home, and the pace has changed. Suddenly, the pursuit by the peloton, Jumbo-Visma, it's as if they suddenly realise, this is getting a bit out of hand. They didn't want to be lent on by those teams around them that expect Roglič in the red jersey and his teammates to chase on. They have got a rack full of talent that could possibly go very well today, of course, so other teams wanted to lean on them. Roglič and Jumbo-Visma thought, no, we're not going to fall for this one, and do all the work early on in the day, and so the gap went very, very much out, nudging up towards the 8-minute mark. But as the pace of the pack has changed, so it has for the breakaway as well. They mean business. They are kicking on here, and they're pushing it back up to the 8-minute mark, so you're getting this ebb and flow at the moment. It's almost a game of bluff between the breakaway and those back here, and still, Sean Kelly, they're trying to tempt our Jumbo-Visma others to help in the chase, and it doesn't look like anyone's minded to do so.
No, the team of race leader, of course, it's the understanding that they will control the race, but what way they control that is another question. And Jumbo-Visma, they were waiting for a while, it seems to be, in the earlier part when the break went away. Then they started to ride, and slowly the gap was creeping out. And when it comes to a point that the break is creeping out to be a danger point for Primož Roglič to lose the jersey, do they start pushing on, or do they just continue at the same pace? And it looks like they've continued the same pace here, maybe even knocked it off a little bit, and for that reason that the breakaway went out to around the 8 minutes mark. And they are hoping that some of the other teams will get involved, and by doing that then they could start pulling the breakaway back, but it doesn't look like anybody else wants to come to the front to give them a hand out here. So they're going to just ride at this pace, and it looks a situation now, unless there's other teams who really come to the front and start pushing on with a number of riders, and that means 2 or 3 other teams to get involved with Jumbo-Visma, but for the moment it doesn't look the case. So we could see that the breakaway will be the one that goes all the way to the finish today, and they're going to go contest for the stage victory and also the race leadership, the red jersey.
Indeed. Break is extremely well placed for the time being, and that could shred all predictions today. Nonetheless, the brave have nailed their flags to the mast. So let's see who it is. How are the predictions for today? On stage 2, nobody got it right. Jesper Philipsen, but Sean Kelly and Karsten Kroon were really close, with Fabio Jakobsen finishing second. Let's see how it pans out today. What's Alberto Contador got to say? Well, my favourite for today's stage is Primož Roglič. He's in great shape. We saw him in the initial time trial, so I'm going to try it, and I'm going to go with him. He's going to give it my best, and he will too.
My prediction for today's stage is going to go to the Brit Hugh Carthy. Now, he lost vital seconds on yesterday's stage, so he's going to want to make up for it today. The stage suits him down to a T, and we know he's going very well as he took a recent win. For today's pick, I'm going to go to Hugh Carthy.
Today's stage, stage 3. For me, the winner will be Primož Roglič. An uphill finish, a very difficult one of plus 7 kilometres. I think it will be a battle between the GC men, and Primož Roglič will come out the strongest on the day.
And what about Jackie Durant? Well, after a time trial and a bunch sprint, we need an uphill finish, and it's going to be the case here at the Picón Blanco. Who's it going to be? Well, no place for the punchers. It's going to be for the climbers, and I'm going to pick Sepp Kuss. Not Roglič, Sepp Kuss, the best climber during the time trial at the Burgos individual time trial, and so he's going to disturb the others, including his teammates, and go for it. Sepp Kuss, who will maybe take the red jersey from Roglic's shoulders. Jackie Durand has spoken. Let's see how he goes, shall we? A reminder, if you'd like to join a poll yourself and indeed give us your thoughts, you can go to the GCN app, and this is how it stacks up at the moment. 53% of you think that it's going to be Primož Roglič. Romain Bardet, 7% of you. He went well over the peak that we're dealing with today in the Tour of Burgos. It finished on a downhill. Here's the rest of them. In fact, that looked like yesterday. I don't think Demar's got a chance today. In fact, yesterday didn't look like he had much chance either. The way he followed his lead-out train, which was not following them at all. Strange one yesterday. Very strange. Today, a very different complexion to the day. We are climbing, and maybe Sean Kelly would like to amend his predictor and say, actually, I'm going to go with Kelly Ellis on now. I've no idea. Sean, we don't know how this one is going to pan out, but the gap's gone back up to over 8 minutes, and it looks like Jumbo-Visma are almost making a statement here. They're not going to have the mickey taken out of them. They're not going to shred themselves on a day like today. I know we've got some flattish stages still to come, but today is far from that. Big kicker at the end. It could be that the GC men are starting to think about comparing themselves to each other today and later on in this race, and so let the breakaway have its fun. What do you reckon?
Well, first of all, Carlton, can we change our prediction for today? Because we're all wrong. It looks very much the case now with 8 minutes, 88 kilometres to go. But yeah, that was always yesterday when I was thinking about that yesterday evening. I was saying, well, will it be a breakaway? Will it be the bunch? And if it's the bunch, well, then it's going to be the big favourites, and that's the reason I went for Primož Roglič. But I think it's going to be the breakaway unless we can, really see a rapid final 87.9 kilometres now. But yeah, I don't think Jumbo-Visma are going to, do that, because it's going to take too much energy. And for the riders that are up the road, for our viewers, they are no danger whatsoever for the outright win in 3 weeks in this race. So they're just going to continue setting this pace unless there's other teams who start really pushing on, and you need a lot of manpower on the front of the peloton to close this one down. So yeah, it's a day when the breakaway looks like they're going to get their glory. And now the question is, who is going to be the best out of this breakaway on the very difficult climb of Picón Blanco?
Well, it's hard to know, to be honest, Sean. But if I had to have a wager, I'm going to speak with the hearts rather than anything else. I'd like to see Amazketa do it for Caja Rural. I always love it. I think it's great for the race when one of the local teams come good. And he was third in the Ruta del Sol this year, so he's on decent form. Here he is coming through. I presume he knows the climb extremely well as well, but there are other very strong riders here, including Kenny Elissonde and the aforementioned Carmijan. That stage that he took on the Tour de France back in 2017, it was up to Station des Rousses, and Sean reminded me of the cramps that he suffered. And it was on the big high plateau at the time, Sean, and we thought, oh, it's all going to crumble away from him. He was crying, he was trying to stretch out his quads, he was in a whole world of pain, and seemed to ride through it and took the win. It was almost miraculous.
Yes, it was a spectacular final there, out of a breakaway where he was out in front, and he got these cramps quite a number of kilometres out, and there was times on the an uphill section where he had to stop pedalling totally, and we were afraid he was going to have to get off the bike to do a bit of stretching there, but he managed to get through and just got his stage victory, and it was a real exciting final, and one of these, I suppose, one of the victories of one of the wins that he will remember, one of the best ones of his career, unless he does something here today, a really spectacular final again where he can win a stage on this climb, which is becoming a very important one. And I think we will probably see more of it in the races as we see in Burgos, but also in the Vuelta, and depending on what happened today now, they could somebody here win this stage, and it will be a stage that will be the highlight of their career.
Certainly will be. Let's have a look at some Vuelta stories, shall we, for you? It's all the social media surrounding the event for the time being.
I like to move it. I like to move it. I like to move it. You like to move it? Yeah, the small one. The big one. I didn't get one. Snake.
This says good boys from Tokyo 2020 to La Vuelta. All the honours here.
Yes! ¡Vamos, Checho!
pinta! ¡Qué pinta! ¡Vamos, Checho! ¡Qué pinta! ¡Qué pinta!
And when the party goes down, we don't stop.
And this is the first images of Luis Angel Mate heading for the bar. Looks like he's got a wit act in the old music hall. Those are the days. Meanwhile, I don't know what's happening with this seminary, but it looks like the sun lounges are out for the monks. You know my view on that. Meanwhile, everyone deserves a break. 83.8. They'll be tired after morning vespers. 8 minutes and 35. It's gone back out, and they're working like a time trialling unit at the moment, and this bodes very well for an exciting finish. Not least because we've got a couple of climbs along the way. We have just dealt with a few little peaklets that we've come off, and I think we're on the last of them right now, which should introduce another little downhill section for you. But we've got a wide open plain, and then we start to hit some really lumpy ground. 3 climbs lay ahead of them, proper climbs. 2 of them are categorised. The next one is the Alto de Bacos, and it's quite testy. It's got its ramps of about 10% within it. It's quite short though, 2.7 kilometres, but it's a rude awakening for the breakaway. They're going to have to start winding them in reasonably soon, however, because as soon as we get to those climbs, we've got some decent climbers in the breakaway. Let's see if they can be diminished by their efforts staying out front. Of course, when there's only 8 of you, you've got your nose in the wind far more often than had you been in the pack, but it doesn't seem like there's a great deal of urgency here, and I think the DSs perhaps have actually worked it out and thought, you know what, we don't think any of these guys are going to be a threat later in the race, so let's have a race within a race. And so I think you'll have a big punch up amongst the GC. This is the way it's panning out on the big test, the Picón Blanco at the end, and a race amongst the breakaway. For the time being, Sean, it's their game.
Yes, it is, and we can see the section they're on here, the 8-man breakaway, working very well together, as you say, Carlton, and advantage going out 8:43 at the moment. But this is a danger zone now when we get to see the peloton when they come to this section, because the side wind here, we can see the riders is coming into their right-hand shoulder. We could see, you know, the straw from the cordon fees blowing across a bit. I think that's maybe from the helicopter as well, but definitely, you know, we're in an open section, and that's where we could see maybe an open pace in the peloton.
Well, the boys out front are doing a fantastic job of it at the moment. Kenny Ellison just exchanging duties here with Wanty Gobert, and Ryan Taramay, the Estonian, veteran now, 34 years of age, seems like he's been with us forever. Meanwhile, back in the pack, it's down to Jumbo-Visma to engage the chase, and they're not minded to do so. It looks like a relaxed atmosphere as they shoot the breeze here. They will measure themselves, Sean. It's not going to be an easy day for them, nonetheless. Even if they do let the breakaway have its fun today, they'll be measuring themselves and looking for time gaps when we get to the climb itself, the Picón Blanco.
Yes, well, when we get to the final climb, whatever the situation is, and it looks like that the breakaway, you know, should be far enough away to be able to go all the way to the finish, but that will depend on, I think, more so the other teams, also the terrain we're coming to. If, you know, we get a bit of side wind in sections, it could get very nervous, and still with over 80 kilometers to go, you know, it could speed up a lot in the main peloton. If that happens and they pull the breakaway back to the maybe 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, even 4 minutes at the beginning of the final climb, then, you know, it's not a sure one for anybody, although we have some very good climbers in this breakaway out front. So the situation at the moment is, if it continues to be a normal situation where the team of Primož Roglič here, which we have on our screen in the red jersey, if they're allowed to do it, well, then I don't think they are going to really start to push, because they're going to have to work too hard to try and, you know, pull back the breakaway. And as I mentioned in the earlier part, in the open of our programme, there's a lot of guys very close in the GC standings at this point in the early part of this race.
Tom Pidcock just checking what was happening with his gearing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've had riders, of course, over the last couple of days have lost time. Landon lost it fair and square, you might say, on the time trial. But that very, very late crash yesterday hampered quite a few, including Adam Yates, who lost 31 seconds. Hugh Carthy lost 38, along with Jack Haig. This was so unfortunate yesterday. Today it's going to be more fair and square, you might say. Any time losses are likely to happen on the big peak itself, but this race has already bitten a few of us, Sean.
Yes. Well, I think yesterday, it was the problem with the crash in the end. A lot of riders, got delayed, caught behind it, and when you're going at that rate, probably doing 55 kilometers per hour when the crash occurred, suddenly you have to brake, knock off your speed altogether, and then there's gaps everywhere because of that crash, and you can lose time very, very quickly.
Big gap out there, 8 minutes and 41, and while some of you have been away on a commercial break, those who have subscribed to the Eurosport Player, or indeed have some fun on the GCN app, where they're watching the race live throughout and uninterrupted, we've just been pondering some of the gaps that have opened up, not least the 8 minutes and 41 here today. Our breakaway, it's got a tough task at hand. It's got a cross headwind it's dealing with at the moment. We're heading into a north-northwesterly, and more or less heading due north. So it's going to be a flat headwind as we get onto this plane, maybe swinging one way or the other. You can see at the moment as the way the riders are protecting themselves in this wide open plane that it's just still driving at them in their face at the moment, albeit slightly to one side. Their right shoulder, in fact, it's hitting first. So yeah, how will the day pan out? Well, we'll hear from Sepp Kuss in a few moments' time. Lots of people saying how strongly he is going. Of course, very, very quick on the climb for the in the individual time trial, which got him that King of the Mountains jersey upon his back, which he still holds because there was no climbing points yesterday. We've had some today, but they've only drawn level. Kenny Elissonde it was that took the first climb today. It was only a modest category 3, had its own tests within it, but Elissonde ahead of Bayer and Soto. So Elissonde with the 3 points, matching the points that Sepp Kuss has. So he's still in the King of the Mountains jersey, but that will change with our second climb today that's categorised, which carries some bonus seconds, I must say. It's only a category 3, and it will come after about 180 kilometres of racing of the 202 that we're dealing with today. And then, of course, we have our run to the line, a category 1 test, where the Mountains jersey will be awarded to the day's winner, you can be certain. Nonetheless, let's hear from Sepp Kuss, the man who wears the polka dots, and his thoughts on today. Some actually saying, including Jackie Durand, that it would be a Sepp Kuss day. It's looking like the breakaway, however.
So back here with the King of the Mountains right now, but the real mountains are coming up, right, Sepp? What can you tell us about that Picón Blanco?
It's a hard climb. It's really steep, a lot of different sections, and it's a bit exposed to the wind, so that'll make it interesting as well.
We spoke to a lot of riders today, and they think a breakaway could make it till the end today. What do you think about that?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, if we can keep the jersey easily, then that's great. But for sure, there's a lot of riders that are motivated to go on the break.
Right. How important is that jersey for you and the team now?
It's important, but it costs a lot of energy to control every day. But it's always better to be in front than behind it.
Right. So what will be the tactics then today to protect Primoz? So do you have your own chances as well?
We're both in a good place in the GC, so we don't have to do so much. It mainly depends on the other teams and riders.
So no attacking then, more like defending?
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, if we feel good, then we can do it differently.
Thanks.
There we are. Very much a closed box with Sepp Kuss. He was just basically sending the questions straight back at our journalist. Oh dear. So Sean Kelly was pretty much a closed box as well when it came to journalists. What on earth do journos want? Something, of course, enliven their job, but it's not necessarily to the benefit of riders to give anything away. Hence Sepp Kuss being a bit of a locked door at that point. This breakaway, great gap at the moment, just about to nudge into 9 minutes. We had a flurry of activity, if you're only just joining us, at the beginning of our transmission, with around about 100 kilometres to go, and it seemed that essentially it was all about whether the breakaway would be allowed its head. There was a suggestion from Jumbo-Visma that they may well finally just pick up the pace and wind them in, and that now has diminished as a threat, it seems. It looks like the breakaway is going to get all the way. 9 minutes is a handsome margin. Rule of thumb is 1 minute for every 10 kilometres, and so if it was about 7.5 minutes at the moment, that should be enough. But the way the demeanour of the peloton, Sean, it looks like we may have two races in one today. One amongst the favourites who will duke it out for the jersey deeper into this race, and the jersey transferring to the shoulders of somebody in the break by the looks of things.
Yes, well, it's looking more and more like it as we get, inside of 80 kilometres to go here. And I was a little bit concerned the section we're going through at the moment. I thought the wind looked like it was coming from the right, but it doesn't look like it's majorly strong, because if it was very strong, I think there'd be more teams very much to the front with 5 or 6 riders from their team all in one line, where we can see here it's just Jumbo-Visma are controlling all the time. So now it looks it's pretty sure the breakaway should be able to go all the way. But again, with just 76 plus kilometres to go, you never know in bike racing. A team could start taking it up, and then another team get involved, and if you have them 2 or 3 teams, 4 teams involved, they could pull it back very quickly, 3 or 4 minutes, and then you're on to the final climb. And it's always a question, how much do they need in the breakaway to be able to survive? Because when you're out there all day, it does really fatigue the breakaway riders, and they're putting in a big effort for this stage. And at the moment, I would say it is the breakaway, but things can change still as we get ever closer to the finish here. But yeah, nice to see the breakaway succeeding, and if they can go all the way, then the stage is up for honours, and also of course the race leadership. And for some of those riders, this is a big one for them, to try and get a stage and possibly get the race leader as well, the race leadership, whoever that will be, because there's a lot of riders, as I said, really close in the GC standings. And there's a number of them there very close, 38 seconds, 33 seconds, 29 seconds. It's going to be a big battle here on this final climb, because they're going to be thinking about that as well. They'll be made aware by their DSs, who is the danger man in the breakaway, who is the best ones on this sort of climb. It's going to be an interesting final here in this final run up to this mountain top finish.
Agreed. The gaps that we had yesterday, unkindly posted, I think, by the crash that happened with just over 4 kilometres to go. So outside of the 3 kilometre rule, that would have been the saving of quite a few. Adam Yates, unfortunately, ceded 31 seconds yesterday, beg your pardon. Hugh Carthy and Jack Haig also amongst the hampered, 38 seconds down. Almost seemed unkind, really, to count the gaps. But some huge ones out there. Max Schachmann, I know Bora really took a big hit, but he did time-wise 2 minutes and 35. Might open up for him, I guess, later in the race. Just looking at as well, finishing positions. Mikel Landa was in the pack yesterday after a disastrous time trial, which saw him chuck away over half a minute on such a short time trial. Was a strange one. Came home 59th, and yeah, it was more brutal than it looked like it was going to be yesterday. Kind of a quiet day, and then all of a sudden the party table and all the goodies were kicked over at the very last. And of course, you may have seen we lost Alexander Cataford as well, he going out with a broken collarbone after that crash for Israeli Startup Nation. First rider to go. We're going to have a look at some on-boards. I'm going to let you enjoy the atmos of it as well from yesterday.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Great job it was as well for Jasper Philipsen, who of course went into the green jersey. And was just saying to Sean before we came on air how nice it is that all of the jerseys are properly owned now, Sean. Roglic in red, Jasper Philipsen in green, Sepp Kuss, King of the Mountains, and Andrea Baggioli, great prospect, wearing the young riders classification as well. It's a nice thing.
Yes, it is nice because you know, we often see at the end of a race, especially where a rider is carrying a jersey, but he's not the actual leader. You know, he's sitting in second position, or sometimes, you know, he can be maybe a bit further down in that classement. But because the riders maybe leading the race, you know, the jerseys, they take preference. Of course, the yellow jersey is the one. If you're the race leader and you're also the leader in the mountain classification, you have to wear the yellow jersey. So it goes down to the second man in the mountain classification standings. So it's nice to see that the carriers of the jersey are the actual leaders here, and also you get the prize money. I think in the races, if you're carrying the jersey for another rider, you do not get the prize money for carrying the jersey per day. That's split, I think, between the actual leader and the rider who is in that second position. So it's nice that way as well. You get actually paid fully for carrying the jersey every day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a sponsor thing. There has been some suggestions that if you were to lead two classifications, then you'd have a sort of a split jersey, but that doesn't work for sponsors. They like to be loud and proud with their own little billboard, so that's never going to happen. Although I think a couple of races may have tried it, but forget that. There's the head of the Viper with its tongue hanging out at the moment, and it's a yellow tongue, as you can see, and that is Jumbo-Visma. It's their duty. It was nudging up towards 9 minutes, and they've changed the pace just to match those out front. I'm still 10% that this break is going to get caught, but it's so strong. And when we're joined by Brian Smith in a few minutes' time, we'll actually ponder who's in the break as well a little bit more deeply as well. The Barrios de Bureda we're coming through right now. Had there been a headwind, I think that would have been the killing of the breakaway, because they have to endure it. A stronger headwind, I should say. We have got a headwind at the moment, but it's blowing at around 11 kilometres per hour. If it does pick up later in the day, Sean, that could be a real hamper to the break, because their nose is in the wind far more regularly than fresher legs in the pack.
Yes, well, I think it will pick up back in the peloton, and the breakaway as well. You know, they will struggle a bit to keep this pace going, because we have seen there they were averaging 40 kilometres per hour in the earlier part of the stage, and I think it's roughly, you know, in or about that plus 1 or 2 kilometres per hour. So you know, those guys are working very hard on the front of the peloton. You know, the Jumbo-Visma guys have to work hard as well, but you know, the guys who are on the front of peloton, they will, you know, peel off when they get to a point where to really start to speed up in the main peloton. That may go all the way to the bottom of the final climb, or if, you know, some of the other teams really start pushing on, which I think they will, before we get to the beginning of the final climb, there will be, you know, a mad race to get into position. A lot of teams will start pushing up, and you know, that can start 20 kilometres before the climb. It could start maybe further out, 30 kilometres from the climb. And when it's early in a race as well, you know, riders are fresh. There's a lot of riders who want to really do a job on the front of the peloton for their leader. So for that reason, you know, the peloton will automatically pull back a bit, but and the breakaway will, you know, start to fatigue. But again, the advantage they have, it's getting, you know, really looking like that is going to be the breakaway. Will hold on all the way, unless we have, you know, that sudden movement in the peloton where teams start pushing on, and many teams get to the front and take this down by 3 or 4 minutes before the final climb.
Some of you going for a commercial break. Sean Kelly's going to have a break as well. Well, they're just heading through the feed zone, as you can see. They're just putting the sustenance where it needs to be, inside their bodies. And these are the mountains that we're going to be playing with a little bit later on. When you look at the profile of the day, it's quite a scary one. It looks sort of moderately rolling, which it is, ever more increasingly so as we get to the little foothills that just bedeck the foot of our final test today. But what a test it is. Let me just describe it to to you, and it's almost eye-watering, just the numbers, quite frankly. Our final climb today is the Picón Blanco, or Bianco, I beg your pardon. Just over 7 kilometres in length. However, it's quite even, really, bizarrely, through the full reach of it, but it gets ever increasingly more difficult. So it starts off in the foothill about 6.5%, drifts up to about 9%, and never really falls below that until you get to the very end. So it's a sort of a gentle-ish intro of 6.5%, then suddenly you hit 9%, and it doesn't really waver until the last few hairpins towards the end, where it hits 18%. So I guess you might say if you're very good as a peaky diesel, then you'll be all right to carry yourself all the way to the line, potentially. But how much kick you're going to have on those kind of inclines is anybody's guess. There are some who can dig very deep on days like this, but will they? That's the big question. Is our Olympic champion, resplendent with his golden helmet. Always wonderful to see, and especially as we kind of got so used to seeing Greg Van Avermaet. He had it for 5 years, and Richard Carapaz will only hold it for 3 because the delay to the Tokyo Games, of course. But well, he's pleased to have that now, and we're pleased as well to welcome Brian Smith into the commentary position. 9 minutes is the gap, Brian. It's a country mile.
Yeah, it is. It's a healthy margin, and we're expecting now the 2 battles for the on the road today. One for the stage, and I expect some movement in the general classification. But when the first breakaway, we started hearing the names, the numbers that were coming out, 8 riders, and the start of the stage wasn't easy. There's a couple of kind of lumps and bumps, and it's a strong breakaway, and it got about 3 minutes quite quickly, and I thought this could go the whole way, and then it went to 6 minutes, and now it's gone out to just about 9 minutes. So yeah, I think definitely the riders in front are thinking of the stage, but as Sean said, they're all thinking of the red jersey as well, and there's a few of them quite close to each other. So not only would they be marking each other out with the potential stage win, but looking at each other for potentially going into the leader's red jersey.
It's going to happen. I feel more confident of that than any other scenario today. Just going to welcome back our wider Eurosport family and indeed introduce them to a certain Mr. Brian Smith. Welcome back, everybody. The whole Eurosport family is back together. Eurosport GCN, your home of cycling, and always at home when Brian Smith turns up, and he's with us now. Welcome to the Steel Helmet. Brian, it's going to be a rare old battle today, but I think we may have 2 battles within the war.
Definitely. It looks like that, and I think already the riders in the front 8 are already kind of thinking about things, thinking about the red jersey, thinking about the stage. There's quite a lot of them kind of fairly grouped together as well. Bayer for Alpecin-Fenix is at 33 seconds, Calmejean 38 seconds, and 29 seconds for this rider here, Soto, and he's been given that information. You can see this could be a huge day for Euskaltel-Euskadi. Swapping that orange jersey for red, that would be tremendous.
Can you imagine? Let's not forget as well, we've got the 3 teams who were in the break yesterday, Burgos, Caja Rural and Euskaltel. They're in the break again, and almost by accident, I guess you might say, they found themselves in a position where they could wrestle control of the race. Soto for Euskaltel, he's just been back to the car and had a rare old chat. You could see the enthusiasm from within the vehicle. Amazing. Yetzabol, veteran, and well, he goes well on this kind of climb, to be honest. If the nearest comparison was Havalambra back in 2019, he finished runner-up that day to Madrazo. Just his never say die attitude, Madrazo, that day. He's only gone and won it, I think, was the expression I issued when he'd gone and come back and gone and come back again and again. I think the cycling mole as well was it's one of his favourite finishes ever, and I'm not surprised, David. It was absolutely amazing. But yes, can that be repeated? Yetzabol was the man denied that day. He's got another chance, another bite of the cherry today. Amasketa for Caja Rural is there. Why not? He's third in the Ruta del Sol. He could do some proper damage on days like this. And some other great names as well. Let's hear from another great name. I think it's Jack Haig who's going to share his thoughts. Now, don't forget, this was before the day began.
So we're over here with Jack Haig now. So what is the big goal for today with this Picón Blanco first mountain stage?
Obviously we have Mikael Landa here, who's in some really good form. He's won up this climb before. So it's just for putting him in good position and seeing what happens, and hopefully coming out all things more or less equal. I think we're still very early on in the Vuelta, so a lot can happen from now on, but if we can get through today with no problems, and if we finish more or less around the mark, I think it's good enough.
What about your own ambitions in this Vuelta?
Obviously I had a little bit of a problem yesterday with a crash. I lost a little bit of time, but to be honest, I'm just happy to be here after breaking my collarbone in the Tour, and to be able to come back and come here, I'm really happy.
Would it be possible to attack already today on the Picón Blanco, just to set a bit of pressure on Roglic?
For myself, I'm just happy to get through and see where the condition is today and then go forward from there. For Landa, I think it will just depend on how the climb plays out.
Because normally this climb will suit him.
Yeah, exactly. This climb is really good for him, but we're still early on in the race and he's building condition throughout the race.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you.
It's interesting, Brian. If there was ever a day to test the form, then this is it. I mean, this race has had all the disciplines crammed into the first three stages. We had a time trial, which was also mixed, of course, with a little bit of climbing in there likewise. A flat stage yesterday, where the sprinters had their fun and some did not, where we had some bumps and bruises. And, of course, the Picón Blanco today. Suddenly we're climbing. They've crammed everything. It's a smorgasbord of delight for us. And I guess the ultimate test of form.
Definitely, and I think when you've got the form, you want to use it to your advantage. And I know that Jack Haig said that Landa's going to build, still a long way to go in the Vuelta, but he's already shown just coming into this in Burgos that he's on really good form. And I think it's about confidence as well. We talk about confidence with the sprinters, but definitely with the GC riders, and the disappointment of crashing out the Tour de France. I think it would be good for Landa to be one of the first of the GC riders over the line today.
Well, the peak that we're dealing with a little bit later on is, of course, familiar to you. Romain Bardet did not win over the peak today. He won on the descent, of course, where he fell, which ultimately cost him the victory in the race itself. Remco Evenepoel, spectacular win for him. George Bennett was beaten by 18 seconds that day. Sousa won solo, by the way, on the Tour of Burgos at this peak, when it finished in 2019. In 2018, the year before, Miguel Angel Lopez was duking it out with Ivan Sousa, and it was Lopez that won that two-up sprint. And Landa's had success here as well in 2017, beating De La Cruz by 18 seconds and Enric Mas, who's also in this race, by 41 seconds. So it's a peak that's very familiar to those who love the Tour of Burgos. And one suggests as well, those who are in the breakaway will be fully aware of it as well and will have taken it on. So they're able to quantify the task at hand, and at least for the time being, our breakaway is working well together, Brian. I was just saying to Sean, they're probably lucky that the headwind that they're facing today is only 11 kilometres per hour, because if it was blowing a hoolie, they wouldn't be having quite so much fun out front.
Definitely not. It's a long day in the saddle, second longest in the Vuelta, and it's going to be hard in the breakaway, but I think with over 9 minutes advantage now, they are starting to think about it. And I think Dombrowski already shown this year already in the Giro d'Italia by getting himself in a breakaway, taking a stage win. And Ellison, I think the heart of many would be Willem Ellison, and he's been at the side of many GC riders in the past, and for Ellison to win, it would be huge. But likewise, we just saw Soto go back to the car there for Euskadi. There's so many riders in here that we could all say that deservedly winning the stage, but you also have to think about the red jersey as well. So what do you do? Do you go all in, just think of the stage win, and the red jersey will come to just a few? Talking about Dombrowski, he's already 3 minutes and 28 seconds down, so I don't think it will be the red jersey for he. But there's so many of the other riders within striking distance of each other that we are going to see that kind of challenge, but both for the stage win, both for the red jersey. And I think Primož Roglic indicated that yesterday when we were talking about Aramburu And the fact that he went for the bonus seconds, he went for the finish, he was trying to kind of grab that red jersey, and I think he was asked, and he never went for the intermediate sprint himself. I think he would be happy to kind of gift the jersey away to another team for a few days, because it's a long way to go, and the weather we're talking about, still 30 odd degrees today, and okay, it's a little bit cooler towards the finish today, but a long stage like this, the last thing you want to do is kind of burn out your team.
I felt sorry for Aramburu, a man who's made of girders, as we all know. Yesterday in the intermediate sprint, just pipped by Fabio Jakobsen after a massive setup by the rest of the Astana Premier Tech team for Aramburu. Omar Freire did an awful lot of work. They went too early, and I was actually thinking, did they misread the road book? It was about 4Ks out from that intermediate sprint, and Aramburu finished in second place, just pipped by Fabio Jakobsen, who actually said later, I was up there, I thought, well, I may as well just test the old legs. Unfortunately for Aramburu, the fact that Jakobsen actually pipped him ultimately meant that he lost the green jersey, because he's level on points with both Jakobsen and Jesper Philipsen, who won yesterday's stage, and he would have headed the pair of them by 3 points in the green jersey competition, but as Philipsen took it, and he's also on 50 points, as is Jakobsen and Aramburu, it means that the green jersey went with the stage win yesterday. I suppose there's a certain poetry in that, but I loved the fact that Aramburu gave it a good old shot. It was nice to see. We had some real battles so far, Brian. Some surprises as well, not least Aramburu himself in the opening time trial. Don't mean to overdwell on talking about him, but it's great that we have surprises, and it could be another one today. There was always a chance that a breakaway would make it, but it now looks like it's going to be solid.
Well, it's going to be a surprise to all the predictors out there, because they're all predicting it was going to be a GC man that was going to get it
on that one.
But yeah, I think that the favourite to go well today, Roglic, Landers, they sort of riders, and I think the way that when I heard that Roglic was really relaxed, I didn't think Jumbo-Visma would be too interested. Still too early on for any of the other teams to think, right, we're going to take it up and we're going to try and win the stage. I think we saw in other Grand Tours in the past where Astana, Premier Tech would come up and try and win the stage, and it never kind of really happened for them. I think the conditions, the hot weather is kind of stopped a lot of riders. And what I saw yesterday, Carlton, was, I mentioned it at the time, that a lot of riders were pushing for position, but then when they got that position and they turned that corner, they just it sat back a little bit. So no one wanted to take it on. So no one wants to wants to control the race. So every indication today that this could be a breakaway day. I know it's still early on in the Vuelta, but there is a bit of a gift. You have to get yourself in the breakaway, but the gift is someone is going to wear this red jersey tonight, and it's not going to be Primož Roglic.
Yep, and I don't think he minded it's being ceded to these guys, but Roglic will still be battling at the end of today, and that will be against the other GC contenders deeper into this race. And no disrespect to our breakaway, but I think they're in a very privileged position at the moment, especially so early on, where the gaps are modest and they're able to bridge them. And in fact, just looking at who is the worst placed amongst them, they're all if the others weren't with them, would have been virtual leader on the day. Joe Dombrowski worst placed at 3 minutes and 38. Minute 28 is Rein Taramay, the Estonian. Minute 11 is Kenny Elissonde from Trek, who you'll pick out in a moment. He's just bouncing at the back. There he is. He's easily screened, is Kenny Elissonde. He's very diminutive, but very, very powerful as well, and can actually deliver. He'll be leaving. He can win today. They all will. Soto here, Jesus Antonio from Euskaltel in the orange, 29 seconds in arrears, had a good time trial obviously. Julian Amos-Keita a minute 19 down from Cairo Ral, doing it for Cairo Ral, the nation's team really, although that used to be Euskaltel Escati, but they're a bit basky for the rest of Spain, if you see what I mean. Cairo Ral, the ubiquitous bank, the country bank, which covers all of those country seats. You can usually find a bank that's open. I know it's a strange thing, but it's true. It's a bit like Crédit Agricole in France, same deal. Lilian Carmajan is here, nearest to us, keeping it calm, the man who's gone so well in the past. That stage on the Tour de France where he cramped up and nearly threw it away, and we were crying for him. And then, of course, he worked it through and won the day back in 2017. That was fantastic. And Tobias Bayer as well, keeping it for Alpecin-Fenix, keeping us talking about Alpecin-Fenix as if we haven't spoken about them enough. I think the one I didn't mention was Jetse Bol, who has gone well on these kind of tests, but not quite well enough when Madrazo beat him on Havolambra, which was a kind of a similar kind of profile as today. He'll be putting that to the back of his mind, you can be sure. Meanwhile, Movistar, not happy. And I think this is because Alejandro Valverde would have quite fancied it today. Why not Miguel Angel Lopez? He's won up this peak in the past as well. And maybe Jumbo-Visma might get some help here from the men in blue with the white M, and when they're all in a line like that, it just says, let's see.
Yeah, let's see. I don't think they'll want to invest. I don't think any team wants to invest a lot of time of riding on the front. Still a long way to go in this race, and you can see that Jumbo-Visma have controlled this, and they're just sitting behind the kind of colour order. I really do think that this breakaway are going to think about not only the stage but the red jersey. Add into the fact we've got a bonus at the top of the climb, the third category climb that precedes the main climb of the day. 10, 6 and 4 in that on the finishing line, of course. So when you consider that Soto is the best placed at 29 seconds and Bayer at 33 seconds, 38 seconds for Carmajan, I really do think it will be in ones in this front group. I can't see it being, riders together and the 8 of them coming in. It's going to be a very difficult climb, and it's going to split this group up into, they'll be coming crossing the line individually. But the bonuses may come into play.
Let's see. Already starting to miss a few turns, Lilian Carmajan there. I don't know whether they'll forgive him or whether they even noticed at the moment, but they will. Deeper in. No sandbagging here, please. You can't get away with it, Brian, if you're going to be part of a breakaway group. If you're already starting to miss a turn this early on, you may well be feigning fatigue, but if you'll be wise to it, and I imagine the DSs as well, who are seeing the same pictures these days, will be making aware, very much so, their charges as to who's slackening off just a little bit.
Yeah, it's all about first and foremost getting yourself in the breakaway, and we didn't see it. We don't have line to line here at the Vuelta, but I'm sure that there was certain challenges put up there with a lot of attacks, a lot of riders trying to get in the initial breakaway of the day. So once you're in that breakaway, it's about helping each other. You become a team yourself, all 8 becoming one team, trying to gain as much time as possible. And when you gain that time, then it's about ducking and diving and playing a little bit of poker with the friends that you've made in that breakaway. And then we go into the final, where it's complete battle against each other. So the kind of different phases of the day, different phases of the breakaway. You go from being friends to wanting to to challenge everybody else, and there's a big prize at the end of the day, a stage win in a Grand Tour, and many of the riders in this front group have not had that opportunity to win. Of course, with the Spanish riders in this breakaway, the added bonuses, taking the red jersey as well as trying for the stage. So it's the door is completely wide open for these 8 riders, and first and foremost, you have to get in that breakaway of the day. So there's a lot of teams have come here with strategies, but sometimes you have to look at the strategies. You have to look at what's happened in the previous day, workouts. If you are going to put a rider in the breakaway, are you going to rest the riders up for days that are to come? So I do really think that the riders that we've got here, and you mentioned Jetse Bol finishing second to Madrazo in that climb. I think that was a strong breakaway that day. It's an even stronger, especially climbing breakaway we've got today. It's all of these riders in this breakaway can climb very well in the end, and I think the heat, the distance will take its toll in the end. So like you're noticing, Carlton, people kind of ducking and diving. It's who can duck and dive the most, play the best game of poker, that can save that little bit of energy you're going to need for this final climb.
You're loving this, aren't you?
I love every race.
I know that, but I can just imagine yourself in a situation like this. I'd hate to be in a break with you, I tell you. There's just too much thought goes into it. I'd be flagging. Anyway. Welcome back, everybody. Just pondering the breakaway with Brian. And indeed, the bonus seconds therein, we have on the second climb of the day today, they've decided to add the bonuses. It's not every day that they put it with the sprint. So today's bonus moves from the sprint, comes after the sprint, on the third category climb with a 10% ramp. A 10% ramp will just be a little taster, as if to say to the breakaway, do you like this? Well, good, because there's an awful lot more of this to come. And on the final test, it's an absolute brute. A little bit of sandbagging going on at the moment. There's a few missing a turn, but they've suddenly got back into this team time trialling unit and working very effectively, this group of 8. Do you remember groups of 8? Yeah, days of old. But yes, it's working extremely well for the time being. And as you can see from the trees, virtually undisturbed by any kind of breeze. 11 kilometres per hour maximum today, and although we saw the cordons just billowing a little bit at the beginning of the day, it's eased ever so slightly, so it means that without that abject headwind that they would have been facing, it's a breeze. They're creating one themselves, of course, as they apply their trade down the valleys here near the Ebro River. Absolutely beautiful part of the world. You've seen some of the caves as well along the way. Troglodytes lived in those and then later formed the band the Trogs, which we enjoyed. That last bit wasn't true, but you get the idea. 8 minutes and 46. Let's hear from Romain Bardet, shall we? A man who succeeded on this peak, but then fell on the descent. And indeed it hampered him in the Tour of Burgos afterwards. But a climb that would have held no fear for Bardet at the beginning of the day, but it looks like he's only going to be measuring himself against the other general classification contenders deeper into this race, as they will be. So we'll have 2 races today, it certainly looks like. How will Bardet go on a peak he knows? Well, we're here with the leader of the DSM team at the start, Romain. What we saw you smiling yesterday. You were very active with your team, carefully riding at the front. Yeah, yesterday we expected a little more action. We feared the wind, so it was best to be at the front, and it went well. It was a relaxed day, he said, in the end. Today's stage, the Picón Blanco climb. You've been testing these climbs lately in the Tour of Burgos. It's the type of climb that suits you the most, would you say? Well, yeah, I like this kind of climb. It's quite technical. We expect a headwind again today, so we'll see how it goes. There's a lot of density, he says, but I don't know what that means. But today is a good first test in the mountains of the Vuelta. Can tell us about the key points of the climb. Not a long climb. It should be quick, and then we'll see if I'm in a good shape. But within the last 3 kilometres, that's where it really does get very, very steep, and that's where the differences will be made, even if there is a headwind. And we'll see that once we get to those last kilometres and reach the top, it can be that you get there quite quickly, but also depends on your shape on the day. So it'll be between the 3.5 kilometre mark and the Flamme Rouge that the difference will be made. It does ease just a little bit towards the line, but yeah, towards that 18% marker. He's fully aware of it. He's done it before. He unfortunately got hampered on the descent after taking that test. Still went on to win the Tour of Burgos that day, the day that included today's climb. There are a lot of riders, though, here in Spain, of course, that know this very well. So they've mapped it in their mind just to sort of give themselves a fillip before the day, or indeed just to remind themselves how tough it can be, Brian.
Definitely, it's not an easy climb whatsoever, and you know, some riders know it, but some riders don't, and I've just watched the video.
And this is your top 10 this year's Tour of Burgos. Of course, it doesn't really count for that much because it was a descent off the back of the climb. But yes, Bardet over the top ahead of Pottsville, Landa, who's in this race, Nieve, of course, and Bayer, who's in our break, was 5th home. So he'll be feeling quite pleased, actually, the man from Alpecin-Fenix. How will he go? Probably very well. He's done the first part of the task, and that's to get in the breakaway. His teammate here, Floris Tio, looks like he's got a technical issue and just going back to the cars at the moment. It's strung out because the pace is up. The pace is up because we're on a little descent, that will take us down to our intermediate sprint today, which will come in about 15 kilometres time, thereabouts. Nonetheless, bit of pace about everyone, but it's being matched by the breakaway today that have had a significant gap, nudging up towards the 9-minute mark. It's kind of holding station, Brian, and the closer we get, the more likely it is that this break is going to be nailed on for the win.
Well, just look at the riders at the front of the peloton. There's 2 riders from Jumbo-Visma in the yellow. There's 8 riders in the breakaway. We talked about, ducking and diving and, trying to save that little bit of energy. The 2 riders for Jumbo-Visma are just kind of swapping turns, just nice and steady. Well, 8 riders are going through in the string. So the 2 riders at the front of the peloton are going as fast as the 8 riders in the front. So that shows you that the 8 riders in the front are not fully committing to gaining time. So it looks like the 8 riders in the breakaway, they are all swapping turns, but they're thinking of the game that's going to be played out on our screens in the next 50 odd kilometres. They are starting to save, they're starting to look at their energy levels, and they'll be starting to kind of stare at each other, trying to look at each other and see how they're going. They'll have this information. They'll know that Bayer finished 5th in that stage. The sports directors, that's their job. They'll do the homework behind and relay that information. So we are in for a real treat of not only the stage win, the red jersey changing, the GC battle behind. It's going to be a really fascinating final part of the stage today.
Yeah, I can't wait. Likewise, the GC battle, I think, will absolutely rage. Roglic will be out there to punish those around him. He'll be handing over red, of course, the way it looks at the moment, to somebody who's in the breakaway. But it's a great day, as we mentioned early on, to test form. Could there be significant damage amongst the GC men after a day like this? Because a lot of them will be well rested, Sean. Brian, beg your pardon.
Yeah, they will be, but you have to kind of test. We saw yesterday in the intermediate sprint, Jakobsen just kind of test the legs out a little bit. He did pay for it, possibly in the final, together with another couple of things. But I think for Roglic, he seems very relaxed. He always is here at the Vuelta, and he won't worry about losing the red jersey today. I think he will follow more than anything. We heard from Sepp Kuss earlier on today as well, saying that they'll just follow, but if the opportunity arises, then they may think about it. And I'm thinking that the opportunity rising for the stage win, but that's not going to be today. So I think Roglic will, rather than go out and trying to do the attack, because we talked about it during the breakaway, that having Kruijswijk, Kuss, Roglic all up there in the general classification, better than the trio from Ineos Grenadiers. They're in a good way at the moment, and if Roglic starts to go on the attack, it might even show weaknesses in his team. So I think they'll be happy just to follow and let the others do the attacking. And when I say others, this man here, Mikel Landa, I think he wants to get a dig in early on. This is only the 3rd stage, but get a dig in early on, just show that the team that he is really on form. Another team, Movistar, not frightened of having a dig as well. Mikel Angel Lopez would be their man. Some people possibly tipping Hugh Carthy today, but I think Hugh Carthy is waiting. He's playing a little bit of the longer game. He'll just be limiting losses and making sure he stays with the GC riders today. But I definitely do think that Landa and his team of Bahrain Victorious, Movistar as well, will be looking to try and do something today.
Well, he needs to do something. Carry his 2 little pet caterpillars all the way to the top. I'm referring to his luxurious eyebrows. I'm kind of jealous of them, to be honest. But yes, Landa, I don't know, he needs to make something of a statement, because he did not go well at all on a very short time trial. Of all the time trials in the world, that was the one where he shouldn't have lost time, and he did on the opening day, and it was too much really over such a short distance. Jack Haig, when asked about Landa earlier on today, Now, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but Jack Haig just didn't seem to... It wasn't that he was hiding something, it just didn't seem that he was fully spooned up as to what Landa would be up to my mind anyway. And I don't know whether that's a lack of communication, a lack of a bond within the team. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it looked like Jack didn't really know what Landa was going to be up to today. And that lack of certainty, I think, needs to be put to bed today. Needs to make a statement. He needs to bounce back into this race. He started off amongst the facts for the whole thing, and then it was like a balloon going down, wasn't it, rather quickly on the time trial. So yeah, you're right, Brian, he needs to make a statement, but there's a lot of other riders who do too. Hugh Carthy's been caught out. He was caught out yesterday, didn't go as well as he'd hoped. He was one of those that also shipped time. He needs to bounce back, and there's a lot of riders, we're only third stage in, who all of a sudden need to pick up and make a statement, and it will be in comparison to those who are gunning for the title late on, and today's the day, Brian.
Definitely, they have to look at it, and I wouldn't read into too much of the interviews. A lot of the teams and they're trained that way, to keep the cards close to the chest and not give anything away. The last thing you want is one of your riders doing an interview pre-stage saying this is exactly what we're going to do, this is our tactic. So that, you can read into a little bit of it, and of course there's that little bit of bravado. So I don't think you can read too much into it. I think the teams will have their own strategy, and it's understanding your strengths and weaknesses in the team, and just possibly thinking what the other team's strategy is going to do, which is going to play into the arms of your strategy. So I think still we talk about the game of poker that's been played in the breakaway at the moment. Even here in the GC, nobody knows who's going to take it up. Is anybody going to take it up? We saw a lot of battles yesterday into key positions, and then nothing happened afterwards. Okay, the wind might have not been strong enough in the right direction, but I just think that a lot of the teams just want to kind of sit back and watch and be there, but there's certain individuals that think this could be a chance to just grab some more seconds, try something, and I think that's what we're going to see in the GC battle.
And who's that going to be from Ineos Grenadiers? Adam Yates, I think. Didn't have a great Burgos, but has been bouncing back beautifully since. Statement time today, I think. Well, this is the Castillo de Tejeda. There's quite a few around here. I'm waiting for the Penon waterfall, to be honest. We're tracing along the river. I think it's the Ebo here. I could double check, but honestly, I've got to say that sometimes the Ebro River, sometimes there's an absolute paucity of information about the locale. I can tell you that the tourist guide on the Vuelta is 350 pages long. I mean, that's Lord of the Rings. So finding what you want is it's needle in a haystack stuff on occasion, I must admit. So I'm picking out a few beautiful things for us to dwell on along the way, and hopefully we're going to see the Oka River Gorge. Obviously that's a dam. I could probably tell you when it was built if I could only find the reference within the tome. I mean, we're grateful of it, but we've got a race to call. We need Jono. Where are you, Jono, for goodness sake? Where's your recipe, for goodness sake? 47.7 kilometres from home, and 8 minutes and 26 is the gap. That's virtually static as a gap, Brian.
Yep, like we were talking earlier on, it hasn't kind of really moved too much. Two riders from Jumbo-Visma controlling the breakaway. The breakaway have realised that they have got enough time. What they plan to do now is try and see if they've got enough energy left, so they're conserving their energy. They are still all working together, as we can see from the pictures now. A lot of riders getting service from the cars. In a day like today where it's very hot, best place to be is in the breakaway, because your bar service is quite immediate behind. So yeah, it's anybody's guess who is going to win the stage, who's going to take the red jersey, because I think when we look at the riders that are in this breakaway, all of them are quality climbers. All of them are very capable of winning the stage, and it's a very difficult one to call.
So is this bridge.
You just called it. It's a bridge.
It's clearly of significance. And, I mean, here we are, another page. It'll be there somewhere. And for those of you who are saying, surely you should have done your homework before, we are busy. You would not believe. Just keeping you abreast of everything that is going on. So yeah, I'm afraid the bridge is just going to have to stay as a bridge. It's a very pretty bridge, though, Brian.
A lovely bridge, a lovely narrow bridge.
Yes, exactly. A pinch point. I'm not even sure we're going to cross it today, but anyway, yeah,
probably cross it off.
I kind of have done, really, haven't I? Let's welcome back our wider Eurosport family, who don't know what they've been missing. Welcome back, everybody. Those of you who've been away, we have seen some bridges. It's just going to have to sit in your imagination, that one. Meanwhile, these guys not bridging over to the breakaway. See what I did there? 8 minutes and 19. Actually, they found 30 seconds in reasonably short order. But they'd have to find a lot more than that and be extraordinarily well committed. I think it was because it was a race to a feed zone. Yes, it's a strange one regarding today. 46 kilometres from home, 8 minutes and 17, and it's about time in a short while that we're going to be welcoming Magnus Backstedt into the commentary position. Are you with us, Maggie?
I definitely am.
Good lads. Hey, did you see that bridge that a lot of people who aren't subscribing to GCN Plus missed?
Oh, it was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was a belter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If there is encouragement for you, if you don't want your commercial breaks, then you can subscribe to the Eurosport Player or indeed the GCN app. Go and have a look around. It's free to have a little ferret around. And there's some amazing things on there. It's not just about live cycling. Of course, they have some spectacular films as well, and a whole raft of other things, discussion groups and the like. If cycling is your thing, then do subscribe, and you get to see all those bridges. Apart from that, Frame Builders is the latest film to have been put up, and I understand we're going to see a little bit of it right now. A tempter, if you like, to go and have a look around some of the spectacular documentaries which Dan Lloyd and the crew have put together for you.
I was never happy with things in their standard state. I always wanted to change it and work out how it works and try and improve it.
After high school, I tried ceramics, hated it, but then I found out that people make bikes.
I bought lots of bikes, and that engineering thing in me thinking I want to make one.
Oh, I really want that.
She's pretty stubborn and was like, I'm just going to do something different.
Let's make one from scratch now. Let's see how it works.
You see? That kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a fabulous film about frame builders, and if you ever fancy having a go yourself, then, of course, if you subscribe to GCN app, you'll be able to find out all about where to and how to go about it. Absolutely wonderful. Go and make yourself your own custom frame. And when people say, is that made of steel? You say, yeah, and I built it myself. Handy. One man who's used to putting bikes back together and indeed fallen riders as well is Magnus Backstedt. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you very much.
What a day we've had, and it looks like this breakaway is nailed on. Who's your pick?
I'm going to go with Kenny Elissonde out of that break, actually.
Yeah, well, the Pocket Rocket, he could do it again.
Yeah.
He has done some spectacular things in the past. He's been in some great situations, losing out to the likes of Greg Van Avermaet, I seem to remember, on the Tour de France Stage 11 into Marlucien. With I'll double check when it was, but it could be his day. And what a turnaround for those guys who are often in support of others to find themselves in this glorious position where they might even take control of the race, for goodness sake.
Well, I think it definitely is. You know, when you're in this situation where there's been an opening time trial, the time gaps aren't particularly big, and then you get a mountain stage like this where, you know, the favourite of the race won the time trial is in the jersey. Then you always start to ponder: are they going to let that jersey go? You know, are they going to let the break go to the finish or not? And those are the days to really just put yourself in the breakaway, make sure that you end up there, because the chances are quite high that you know, the general classification riders aren't going to be looking at sort of expending the energy to keep this under control and keep the time gap close enough to try and go for the stage win. For them, it's more about conserving their position, conserving some energy on these opening stages, and then see what happens later on. But we also got to remember that final climb today is brutal in terms of the gradient. I know it's not the longest climb in the world, but it is very, very steep indeed. And if you spend all day in a breakaway, you can lose time hand over fist in you know, a very short space of time. So they're going to need a significant advantage going into the bottom of that climb, especially if any of the guys here who are not, you know, lost a bit of time in the GC, was on the wrong side of that crash yesterday, then you're going to start needing to make some time back up again, and with that we can end up with a race from quite early on that climb, and at that point the breakaway, you know, they're going to struggle to hold on to even an 8-minute lead.
8-minute lead. To be honest, I thought it may well have been pared back by now, but Brian, the pace that they are setting is being matched evenly throughout. I'm just actually seeing who is likely to come forward and actually add to the drive. Bahrain Victorious have actually been up close to the top, which suggests that your tip of Landa having a dig will work.
Well, I think it will come to the peloton, but you can see Hofstede up. He's not out of puff at all, is he? He's just you know, rolling through with G-Sync at the front. The two of them are just, you know, riding their own kind of two up at the front of the peloton. Everybody seems to be very relaxed behind. Bahrain Victorious, the blue jerseys of DeConing coming up, Cofidis are there, so everybody's quite happy with the race situation. They also know that this last climb is quite brutal. Many of them have climbed it just, you know, last week in the Vuelta Burgos, and they know what's coming. So I think that's why we're seeing the front of the race just steadying itself, the peloton steadying itself, because they know what's coming. They know that, well, certainly these riders know that there is a huge opportunity in the challenges ahead, and it's the same for the GC battle. It really is the calm before the storm at the end.
It's going to be great as well. Brian, you're going to be on the sofa at the end of today, I understand.
Yes, I am, yes.
Wonderful. Who's joining you today?
Big Maggie and the hostess with the mostess, Ola Shinowi.
Wonderful. Well, we'll let you take a bow and disinfect the arena. Waiting for Sean Kelly to come and join us again. Thank you, Brian. Magnus, we've got whoever takes the jersey today, if it is from the breakaway, they're going to hold it for quite a few days, to be honest, possibly all the way to stage 7.
Yeah, quite possibly. You know, there's not that much in terms of climbing after this for a couple of days until stage 7, which is a brutal one. But yeah, it's definitely a possibility to hold on for it for a while. So, which is why these guys are investing as much into this today and really trying to get to a point where they can fight it out for not only for the stage win, but for the jersey as well. And I think that looking at the profile over the next couple of days, that's why Primož and Jumbo-Visma aren't all that fussed about holding on to the red jersey from here on forward for, you know, a good few stages. You know, they've been conserving so much more energy, being able to sit in the bunch and just be sort of dragged along.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought tomorrow would be more of a breakaway kind of day with a little kick at the end, something for Freire or somebody like that to have a dig. Did not expect it to be certainly this kind of gap today if a breakaway was going to make it, and it's held steady now for possibly the last 30 kilometres at about 8.5 minutes. There was a moment when Jumbo-Visma picked up the pace and nobody really wanted to join in the fun, and they thought, we're not going to be anybody's fools here, let's make it 2 races in one. But I think you're right, Magnus, I think they'll be reasonably relaxed about giving the jersey away to one of the number of who are up the road. Worth going through the break though, Mags. Lilian Carmejan took a fabulous stage on the Tour de France where he started to cramp up back in 2017. I was talking to Sean Kelly about it. Do you remember it, where he got up on the high plateau and got it was a deep cramp in his quads, and he actually stopped and was crying at one point, and then got back on the bike and won.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal day out that was. But yeah, I mean, these are the things that kind of tend to happen from time to time, and it's much easier for it to happen when the temperatures are what they are here, and obviously we got a bit of a temperature change as well going up to the finish. The temperature drops quite a bit, and your body tends to not necessarily like that difference. You know, when you're starting at 35 degrees and it's 5 at the top of the finish, that 30-degree difference will your body will kind of not like that an awful lot.
Well, it was not quite that bad. 24 Celsius in the valleys. It started off at 11 this morning. I think you're right, it has chilled down a little bit even more. We've got fog at the top, which we're hoping is going to burn off. Tobias Byers here, who was fourth in the youth classification at the Tour of Burgos, but has significantly as well went over the top. I think finished in 6th place on this stage in the Tour of Burgos, albeit it finished on a descent. Tell you what, let's have a thought from Egan Bernal, I think it is. Gosh, it's very quick. Today took an opportunity in the GC in the standings. How will it go today? Well, he said, I think that today is going to be a good test, says Bernal. Thankfully he speaks a bit slower. I think it'll be really a war for the GC contenders on such a climb, and we'll see what shape the other riders are in. We're just going to try the climb itself the best way we can, setting our pace. We're not going to take responsibility of controlling the race, that's for sure, without knowing how we really feel in the race so far. So I think that other teams will do that, and I'll be setting my own pace in order not to lose too much time, and I'll be happy if we don't lose too much on, of course, the other main contenders that are out there on the course. So we'll just have to see what our possibilities are in comparison to our main rivals and see if we're happy with that. Well, the good thing is that there's already a mountain stage on day 3, says the questioner. He says, I think if we're going to have some good gaps already in the GC standings, then this is the kind of day, and things will calm down, certainly in terms of the hierarchy and how it's made. I think he means possibly even within his own team. That would be interesting. I think that this will happen sooner than is usual. Interesting, Magnus. Very cagey about, you'd expect that, about his view on the day, but basically alluded to the fact that they will not be the ones that are controlling the race, and he's got some questions to answer about his own form, and indeed those are the main rivals, but I think also within the team. Ineos Grenadiers come here very strong with Bernal, Carapaz, Adam Yates, Sivakov, Pidcock off the gold as well. Bale has been going extremely well, but Bernal, Carapaz, Yates, you'd probably think a triumvirate of a real trident of aggression potentially. Let's wait and see. But as it stands, they don't know where they stand in terms of their pecking order within their own team.
No, they don't, and I think they're not the only ones, and that's why we're hearing all this sort of cagey talk, and people, the riders are not quite sure where they're at. They've been dealing with the heat, getting acclimatized to that, and so on and so on, and that makes for everyone is sitting out here today just wondering how good their legs are going to be on the opening climb of this year's Vuelta, and the opening tough climb, let's call it that, because we've obviously had a couple of little lumps and bumps in the past, but yeah, it's everyone's going to be somewhat nervous going into the bottom of this one.
Well, they're all in colour order at the moment, aren't they? It's almost like we're riding to a finale right now, and I guess in many ways we are. We've got an intermediate sprint coming up, and this is bonus seconds up for grabs as well. I wonder if they'll roll over it or really duke it out. in that regard. Let us wait and see in a few moments' time. It comes in about 1,500 metres, our intermediate sprint. Doesn't carry bonus seconds today, but it does carry points. We'll see how important that is to our breakaway today, because they may as well make hay while they can. And that breakaway, Amezquita is part of it for Caio Rural. Now, he was third on the Ruta del Sol this year. I know a lot of these races, it's hard to kind of judge form, isn't it, Magnus, with so many COVID interruptions, I guess. But third on Ruta del Sol, that is no bad bragging rights at all. And Caio Rural shone brightly with the 28-year-old in that race.
Yeah, they did. It's obviously been disruptions and so on based on the COVID, but we've actually had a pretty normal season. Let's face it. Yes, there are a lot of added extras and difficulties with travel and so on that the teams are having to deal with and the riders are having to deal with. But the fact is that they have been racing throughout the season, and even a team like Caio Rural, for instance, they're highly enough ranked to get some very good bike races to do. So I don't think they're coming in here under raced, but at the same time, everyone on the opening sort of mountaintop finish of a Grand Tour have got some sort of minor question marks of how good am I going compared to the rest of the guys, and there's only one way to find that out, and that's by getting to the bottom of the final climb.
They're going to race this, and the man who's going for it is Lilian Carmijan. He's gone over to the other side of the road. Who's up to challenge him? Well, it's Amezquita, my pick for today, and here he comes at the line. Amezquita gets a rack full of points, no bonus seconds, you'll understand. They are now falling upon the climb that's still to come, and they'll be at that climb reasonably soon. They need to just rebrand themselves as a team time trialling unit as quickly as possible, and there's nobody pacing on at a moment like this. You don't want to burn all of your bridges, indeed shred your opponents. Long reach for it on the left hand side of the road, as it was for Lilian Carmijan of AG2R Citroën, and then coming into the frame, of course, Amezquita. I think he's heard that I backed him for today, but Magnus, I'm hoping it goes well. The man in green and white. Let's dwell on some of the others. Yetzabol, been around the block. Great experience for Burgos BH. Great that the three teams that were in the break yesterday have got a chance of wresting control of the race itself. Here is Amezquita, the youngster. By the way, finished second to Miguel Angel Lopez and Antoine Talloc in the Ruta del Sol. So it was a good roster of riders. The Arctic race, fourth was Soto. Very different conditions down here in the valleys, but may well be very similar conditions by the time we get to the top. He of Euskaltel Euskadi, who's in the break. Kenny Enerson we know about. Your pick, I think, would that be right, Magnus,
correct.
From the break? Yeah, I think it's a very good pick. I think he's probably a favourite. And had I not jumped for Amezquita earlier on, I think I'd probably be with you. Joe Dombrowski as well is here, the American. Took a stage in the Giro, of course, to Sestola for UE Team Emirates. So already had a great season. Could get even better today, Magnus.
Yeah, I definitely think he could, and he's definitely one that I would say is a favourite for this, especially if the breakaway goes into the bottom of the final climb with this type of time gap. We've seen him do it in the past, and he's definitely capable of doing it again. So he's a real danger man for today's stage.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. The man from Christiana, can he indeed reach for the stars today? Well, he can. Rain Taramay as well, 34 years of age now. I'm always shocked at that, because I always think he's almost like an eternal presence. And I forget that just how long he's been around. He was with Cofidis in 2007, for goodness sake. That's a long pro career.
Yeah, it is quite a long career, that is. But then again, we see quite a few riders having these sort of lengths of careers now, and probably more so nowadays than earlier on, actually, because the teams are looking after the riders in a better way, I think, and making sure that they look after their investments, and even the riders are getting smarter with, come back from injuries and making sure that they do rehabs and making, getting themselves fully fit before they go back into racing. And that's something I think is changing the sport and changing the longevity of the rider in the sport.
I guess in a way it's become a more packed field as well, because we're bringing youngsters on quicker because of those programs you talk of, Magnus, and we're extending the careers of some of the veterans as well. So it's a packed field out there, difficult to get a contract, and every single rider who is here at La Vuelta has worked very, very hard and is of a star quality enough to have seen away an awful lot of rivals that would have loved that seat.
Well, there are so many riders who would love that seat out there. You know, I don't think there's a young rider who rides, well, anyone who races a bike at a young level all dream of being at this level of racing. So yeah, and the younger riders are getting very, very good, very, very quickly as well these days. You know, they're coming almost straight through from juniors in certain occasions into, you know, this level of bike racing, and they're competitive straight away, which is changing the dynamic within the bunch quite a bit, I think. And yeah, a lot of the, like I said, the young riders are coming through. They're just performing on a new level.
They are. There's a couple of Backsteads out there as well, I believe, who are a couple of youngsters who are doing extremely well. Eleanor and Zoe. We've always got to give them we've always got to wave a flag for Maggie on that one.
Oh, thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Superstars they are already. Meanwhile, 8 minutes and 46, and these guys, a sprinkling of star quality throughout this group is exactly what you want. And why not? Took a stage, Kenny Elissonde, on La Vuelta. It was a surprise one back in 2013. I remember it well. Up the Angliru, and we were at the time. It was when Chris Horner, I think, that day wrestled control finally of the race. The great Chris Horner went on to win it, of course, the oldest Grand Tour winner as he was. Fantastic, or at least in the modern era. Yeah, Chris Horner, fabulous rider, and indeed delivered on La Vuelta. Kenny Elissonde, though, beat him that day. I remember Chris Horner getting to the line in second place and lying down with it amongst a pack of photographers who were all hounding him almost, and I thought he'd passed out, and then this enormous grin just came over his face and he was picked up, and it was quite a sight. Chris Horner, of course, going on famously to win La Vuelta that year back in 2013, but Kenny Elissonde pipped him on that day I think he was 21 years of age, and everyone in France, of course, went nuts. As they always do. They're always looking for the next big thing, but he's not a big thing, is he? He's a small thing, but he's very powerful.
Well, he's obviously a very, very good bike rider, but yeah, I mean, the way that Chris Horner was going that year in the Vuelta and putting 26 seconds into him, I think it was around about that mark on the top of Angliru, is, I mean, that's a special ride by any means.
Certainly is, and Elissonde is here, and he's in the break. Now we are waiting, of course, as well to be rejoined by Sean Kelly. Are you with us, Sean?
Yes.
Good lad.
Here I am.
You've been quietly enjoying your espressos in the corner there, haven't you?
Yes, well, I've had a few.
Good
certainly need a few for this final, and I think a lot of the riders here in the peloton are thinking, the guys who have to perform here, who are fighting here to stay up in the general classification, maybe some of them thinking to take some time from others. It's definitely down to 2 races now. We have this race out front with the breakaway, but also we could have a race out of the main peloton between the big GC contenders.
I don't normally pray for wind, but I hope on stage 5 we get some because we thought we were going to have wind being a major factor yesterday, with all the races to all of the twists and turns, teams having to do that just to police the duty and make sure that they didn't get caught out. I thought today a headwind might well just compress this a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I'm very, very pleased we're going to have 2 races in one almost today. But just look at the demeanour of the peloton here, Sean. They've had a day off, surely.
Well, there's a lot of them had a day off. If you're sitting here in the peloton back in 20th, 30th position, you can get a very easy day. keep on turning the legs, keep a good cadence, and just get through the day. Depending on what your objectives are in this stage, you know, some of the guys are, you know, going to have really nothing to do at the end of this stage. They're going to, you know, just drop off the end of the peloton and come up this climb at an easier pace. So for those guys, it's, you know, part rest day. But for the general classification men, it has an easy day up to now. But it could become a big battle here out of the peloton between those favourites, as it will be definitely out in the breakaway, because there's a lot up for grabs here. There's the stage win, there's the race leadership, there's the mountain classification jersey. There's so much to fight for here between our 8 leaders out on the road.
The only jersey that's not going to change, I think, is actually the points jersey. Yeah, remarkable. That will stay on the back of Jasper Philipsen. You've seen the points handed out, but 3 riders level on 50 points at the top. Philipsen, who won yesterday, ahead of Fabio Jakobsen, who took points in the intermediate sprint, and of course Alex Aranburu, who had assembled points on the opening day, only to be beaten, of course, by Primož Roglič at the very last. There's the intermediate sprint. Remember that? It was quite some time ago, wasn't it? Well, they have been through it, and we're just going to ponder the condestables. I don't know what that means, but they put 2 towers up to cover them. .8 kilometres from home, and we have an 8 minutes and 47 seconds gap. It's almost absolutely solid. There could be a tow rope between the breakaway and indeed the peloton at the moment. It just has not diminished at all. There we are. Well, it looks like the camera needs to avert its eyes ever so soon. We're going to be hearing from Primož Roglič, who spoke to us at the beginning of the day, as to his thoughts. He's been amazingly relaxed, Sean, as Primož Roglič. He looks unstressed at this race.
Yes, he does, and you know, we did see him in the day 1 time trial, you know, preparing for that short effort of 7+ kilometres, and he went out there, done the job, and won that time trial convincingly against you know, some of the other big favourites. He took quite a bit of time from them. So yeah, you're going to be relaxed then, because, you know, the confidence is rocket high. You've achieved, you know, a great start to a 3-week tour, and you know, when you're going like that, when you're performing, well, then you can be relaxed. But yeah, to the cameras he's relaxed, but, you know, outside of that he still has to, you know, concentrate every day. When you get to the finish, he has to do all this, you know, the press work, and get that over, get to the hotel and try and, you know, get as much rest, recovery time as possible. So, you know, you're still in that zone. You're still focused on the race, you're still focused on that 3 weeks ahead. But yeah, he looks happy.
Certainly did. The way he strolled over to Jan Tratnik with his cool vest on as well. He was in a very, very happy place. Here's Enric Mas. Could have been a contender today, I think, Enric Mas. His kind of peaks, but not to be. I mean, it may well be that out of the pack we see something. And right now it looks like a bit of a drag race going on, as you can see. They're playing with the highway here and just reassembling themselves. Jumbo-Visma is like, what's happening? Seems we've got company all of a sudden. I don't think that this gap is going to come down, but let's see. I don't know, what would be considered a dangerous gap, Sean, on a day like this?
Well, it all depends, you know, what the position in the overall standings is, and you know, the breakaway, first of all, there's no danger there of the men up there. They're going to take you know, quite a bit of a chunk of time in the GC standings, but that is for a number of days. So the GC contenders, Roglič and all the ones are thinking of the top place in the podium, the top 5 in the overall standings. They're not concerned about this breakaway today, and you know, it's something that we talk about. Offloading the jersey is called in cycling, and, you know, will they do that? When the situation, you know, presents itself, they do that, and that's what Jumbo-Visma have done today. And now it's going to be between the men in the main peloton just to fight it out and stay with the general classification men.
Welcome back, everybody. Just pondering Enric Mas, who's had a brief technical. He's just being brought back up by a teammate. Gets himself some sustenance while he's here. You may as well. exchanging the bottles nicely. Not as hot as it has been, Magnus. It's hovering around 24 Celsius down here in the valleys. It could have been a lot more punishing today, especially if the wind had blown up and those temperatures. It can feel like you're standing in front of a blowtorch if it's a hot day and you've got the wind.
Yeah, it definitely can around here, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it's quite nice for the riders that it's not boiling out there, and especially with the final climb as well, and the temperature cooling down quite dramatically at the top. Yeah, it makes life a lot easier for the riders. And you know, when you're riding sort of in the mid-20s, then at least you don't have to be going back to the car all the time to get bottles, because there are certain days when you're riding in the Vuelta where you feel like the only thing that you're doing is hovering between the team car and the peloton, bringing bottles up and down, and you know, it can become quite a hard day actually, just doing that job.
Sean Kelly doesn't get bottles. I remember him. he sent Brian back to get a bottle once, and when Brian came back up with that bottle, there was only one. He asked Brian if he could have a drink, and he drank the lot. Brian's still whinging about it, and Sean's still smiling about it. Enric Mas just being brought back up. You can hear him laughing in the background. Enric Mas being brought back up. Renowned as a slow starter, Sean, Enric Mas, within Grand Tours, but he seems to have started quite brightly, actually.
Yes, well, he's one of the big favourites who has a very good opening time trial. But I'd not take too much on that. You know, the time trial is, you know, the first, the big test for the GC men to try and get the best time possible, not to lose time against the other GC contenders. And that's, you know, what you set out to do in a big 3-week tour. Then when you achieve that, and if you do a good time trial, it does help, you know, it gives you that morale boost, but it doesn't say that because you have a very good opening time trial you're going to be up there today. We could see some of the GC men having difficulty if there's a battle, and that's the question now, because with the stage gone, that battle back in the peloton is not the fight for the stage, so it might be a bit calmer than it normally would be, but you never know. There could be a big battle between the GC men on this climb, because it is a real killer one, and as it is in the day 3 of the race, it can be a problem for some riders that need a bit more time to get into the rhythm of the race. So we could see some of them GC contenders having difficulty following and staying with their main rivals and losing some time on this final run here to the finish.
Well, while you dwell on the troglodytes here, is the Cueva Ermita here in residence and chapels dug into the chalk and limestone here. Yeah, spectacularly so. You saw a chalk mine a little bit earlier on, which will produce talc, I understand, something that cyclists used to use a lot. What happened to talc, Magnus? It's not used anymore.
No, it's well, nowhere near as much anyway. So there are certain days when it's good, but yeah, it's not something that we tend to use anymore. Actually, I don't think I ever used it in my career.
Too young, Mags.
No, I am apparently. That's thank you, Carlton. I appreciate that one.
Yeah, sure. What happened to talc?
Well, I'm not sure if it's being used a lot. Are you talking about cycling terms, or are you talking in general?
Days of old, talc was everywhere.
Well, back in the day, talc was something they used to put in their chamois. When it was the old chamois, you know, back 30, 40 years ago, they used to use talc before they go out on the race.
There we are. It's all cream these days. Modern fangled stuff. Let's hear from our race leader.
So there we have our leader, Primoz Roglic, first timer on Picón Blanco. Tell me, what did you see on that video of Picón Blanco, Primoz?
That is super hard climber, really steep, with super steep ramps all the time, and yeah, will be a challenge today to see how it goes.
Will be a challenge for everyone. Normally this should suit you, this climb.
Yeah, they say, but at the end it's all about the legs. So hopefully I have the legs, I can race. Otherwise, will be a long way suffering.
It's going to be a long way either way until the Picón Blanco. What are the tactics on the way? Do you fear some wind maybe today?
We have to see it, huh? You never know. You can always predict something, but then, yeah, reality sometimes is a little different. More or less wind, different directions. So yeah, it's a long day, like you said. We have to keep focus to, first of all, of course, come to the climb, and then, yeah, do our best on the climb.
And if possible, you might attack there yourself?
If I have the legs, huh? But yeah, we just have to see. Yeah, I would be super happy already to see if I can ride well with the best on the climb.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Keep asking the questions, and it keeps straight batting them back. Let's see. Alto de Burgos is coming up. Sean, this is a little taster of what we've got to come. It's our penultimate categorised climb. It's the next test that we're going to be dealing with, and it looks like the approach pace, at least, the break has been pared back by a solid minute. I still don't think they're going to get caught, but we've got ramps of 10% in this next climb.
Yes, well, I think, you know, it's a nice one to have this little climb, Burgos, before the big climb up to Picón Blanco, because it just gets you into that rhythm of climbing again, you know, being out here on the stage. Mostly relatively flat. The first part of it was a bit more lumpy, of course, but still it was all big gear stuff. So, you know, this will get you into the rhythm of climbing. You'll definitely need to get into that rhythm on the final climb. So I think a lot of the riders will like this, and I don't think it will be a crazy pace back in the peloton. It's just all about getting onto the climb in a good position with your leader, and that's what we're seeing now. Teams trying to position their team leader for this climb. But when we get on the climb itself, I think it will settle down again, and it will be all about the final climb to the finish here and what will happen there. And, you know, that is the question, because there's riders in here, they're saying to themselves, you know, will there be a battle here? You just don't know. You have to be ready for it. You have to put yourself in that position where you can react if there is a battle starting in the very beginning of the final climb of the day. But yeah, that's the great thing about bike racing. You never know what is going to happen at any moment during the race, and especially when you get into the final.
Interesting coming into town here, this sort of zigzagging through some 90-degree turns, a few of them very tight together. They came in about 8 wide, didn't they, into that last corner, and as you can see, they're mobbing at the front yet again, and it's really strung out. So if you found yourself out of position, or if you were just enjoying life in the centre of the pack, all of a sudden you've got yourself a little bit of ground to make up. Hovering around those positions, some riders like to hover at the back, some in the middle and some up front. Adam Yates yesterday was not with his teammates and got caught out by the crash, Magnus, and that's a danger at any moment, and they were basically racing for a technical series of turns there just to make sure they're in a safe place in case there was any bumps.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is different when it comes to where they position themselves in the bunch, but you know, at the front of the bunch is always a safer place to be. You know, even though we see crashes happening relatively close to the front still, but it tends to in general be a much safer place to be. And also when you're sitting out in sort of terrain like this, all of a sudden you're coming into town and you got these couple of little corners and the bunch gets strung out, and then you're having to work relatively hard to get yourself back into the mix again. You know, and at any point the race can start to happen. And I personally really struggle with the idea of having a rider sat right at the back. You know, there's always a job to be done for the team or for one of your, you know, a GC contender or anything that goes on like that. So to me, just try and sit near the front, work with the team, make sure that if you're not going to be battling it out for the stage yourself, lend a hand to whoever needs to help.
Yeah, indeed. Needs it now. We are already climbing, as you can see from our breakaway. They're dealing with ramps of about 6% at the moment, but it's just about to kick up. It will do in the next, within the next kilometre or so, to around about 10%. It's not one you can really settle down in. We talk about an even climb, which we still have to take, Magnus, at the very end of today. I know that you have to skittle off in 10 or 12 kilometres time. So your thoughts on the climb at the very end today, it is reasonably even around 9 and 10% until the very end, where we have the last 1,500 metres, where we start to nudge up to 18%. But an even and steep climb it is nonetheless.
It is a very steep climb. Averaging out at just over 9%. That's steep by anyone's books. So, I expect this to be a very, very hard climb. And although the first kilometres sort of starts at about 5.5%, but then from then on, you're hovering around that 10% mark pretty much the whole climb. So it is going to be a very, very difficult climb to deal with, and I think a lot of the riders have got that in their minds. And with those kind of gradients as well, you need to be making sure that you start the day with the right gearing on, because you're gonna need a smaller gear to get up this climb and be able to keep some form of cadence going on those kind of gradients, and that can have an impact for the rest of the day as well, because as soon as you put that different cassette on the back to give you a little bit more gearing, the gaps between the gears end up being bigger, so you quite often find yourself sort of either slightly too big or slightly too small when you're sitting on the flat, sort of riding along. And it's something that for me that I really did not enjoy, those sort of days when you had to sort of make that rear cassette widespread, and you can never find the perfect gear really at any point.
Was it Aqua Blue only had single chainring up front?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that must have been a real challenge on days like that.
Yeah, and they ended up with some real big gaps in between the sort of the number of teeth on the back of the cassette. So you found yourself overgeared by 5 RPM and or undergeared by another 5 RPM, and that is for a professional bike rider, that's a big range of cadence to battle with, where you feel like I said, you're either over or undergeared all the time, and it's only at certain speeds where your gears kind of make sense. So yeah, I could see why those guys weren't particularly keen on it.
I think we're allowed to say that now, aren't we? Yes, it was a strange choice, but nonetheless. So, engaged on the climb, we're not seeing too much of our breakaway, unfortunately, just as they hit the main test. But the gap's down to 6 minutes, Sean. They found something here.
Yes, well, it's not surprising, the peloton, the way they've been pushing on to get onto the climb. That's always the case, but then when you get onto this climb, which the breakaway are on, and they're just walking away at it, and you can see there they're looking about, watching each other. A lot of riders looking over their shoulder to see what the way the other ones are looking. Who maybe is there going to be an attack here as they come to the closer to the top of this climb. 1.1 kilometers to go, but yeah, I think they're just knocked it off a bit. They know the advantage they have. They have enough to get to the finish. But yeah, the peloton is definitely closing down on them, but I think it's going to be far too late for any danger for the breakaway to be pulled back on the final climb.
Well, they've just dealt with the steepest part of this little lumplet, the Alto de Burgos, so they've got through that okay. A real change of pace as it was coming through town. It kind of makes you wonder what might have been today. There's clearly, Magnus, a lot of power left in the peloton today. I think it's not been the most testy, so far anyway. There may well be some fresh legs to be imposed on the remainder of the day.
Without a shadow of a doubt. But what we're seeing now, the reason that the peloton is bringing that gap back somewhat is like Sean was saying, that the chase for position going into that town, you had all of the sort of main GC teams near the front, and they all wanted to get into that town first and try and avoid any unfortunate situations. And the same thing going into the bottom of this climb here now. They're pressing on because you don't want to lose the sort of the position in the bunch, or have one side of the bunch riding ahead slightly and you're sitting a little bit further back, because that means that you can then, if there's a change in direction and those guys who are slightly ahead move across, then you find yourself boxed in, and you're going to have to try and get the whole team out and get to the fore again. So that's why we're seeing that sort of almost drag race between 4 or 5, maybe 6 different teams.
There we go. KOM point up for grabs, just flattened off at the top here. And they've duked it out rather nicely. And it's Alpecin that just making us talk about them almost constantly here. And it's Tobias Bayer.
bonus seconds on the top of this one as well.
Indeed, 3 coming their way. Thank you for reminding us, Magnus. They're not attaching it always to the sprints.
Not in this race.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice that we got that variation, though, I think.
I think as a spectator, yes, it could be. As a rider, not a big fan. And I think you'll be with me on that one, Sean, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, certainly. It depends on what sort of rider you are, and I'm not surprised you, Magnus, are saying you would not like the bonus to be on the top of a climb.
I didn't like any climb, Sean.
But I wasn't. We talked about that earlier in the day, that these bonus on the top of the climb, I wouldn't have liked them either if I was in there challenging for the overall position, because you're always going to have difficulty against the better climbers. Although this one, a relatively easier climb, so it's more of a punch or a power climb. But if it's on the big ones, which they are in this race, well, then it makes it very difficult for a guy who do not like the climbing of the mountain stages when you're fighting for a GC classification. Bonuses wouldn't be welcomed.
Tobias Bayer, we mentioned earlier on today, he was 5th on that stage that mirrored this one, kind of. Went up and over the top, and was 5th on the descent. Meanwhile, this is starting to break down a little bit, and Lilian Carmajan has decided to impose himself. He's going to try and drive this one away, and a few off his back wheel. This is the first reach out we've seen, the first time that there's a rider prepared, Sean, to kick the table over as far as this band of brothers is concerned. Right now, they're starting to show their weaponry.
Yes, well, I'm not sure why he's trying to kick over, but he's trying to kick something here. And Carmajan is going to try to go from, a bit longer out. And when you have this, 5 minute on advantage, you can afford to do that, because they know they have enough to go all the way here. And some of the riders are thinking, I'm up against riders who are better climbers here, so I have to try and get away before we get onto the climb itself. But it's always a difficult one. And then if you go it alone, you make that effort, and they ride behind you, they still start walking together where they relay each other, changing at the front. I mean, it's always a complicated one. But if you know that when you get onto the final climb that you're not going to be up to the other riders fighting out for the stage, well, then you have to give it a go and try and, as you say, Carlton, kick the table over.
Well, let's see. Drinks are all still in place just for the time being. Meanwhile, these guys are on 10%. And that's not their bonus for the day, but look at the time gap. It's come down to 4 minutes and 45. Well, there is a real blow-up amongst those out front, and I'm sure that within the breakaway we're going to have a great deal of selection. At the moment, all those fresh legs and maybe fresh minds, mind you, after yesterday's stage, I'm not quite sure about that. Oh, hello. It just not what you want to see out the back. This is Lozanko, just almost saying, that's me done, and that was 10% for him. Don't worry, it's not the guy in the break. That is Amos Keita, but one of his teammates, just showing you how this day can bite. And after a day like yesterday, which I guess was wearing in its own way, Magnus, there are some that are going to get found out even on the early tests today, and that doesn't bode well for many. There could be some huge gaps at the end of today.
Yeah, well, they could be, but I think the guys that are getting dropped on that one are generally sprinters or lead-up man type of riders. The guys for the flat, and they know they're going to make it inside the time limit. But to be honest, I'm looking at that time gap, and I'm not 100% convinced that these guys are going to make it to the finish, because to me, on that steeper gradient as we got on the final climb, they're going to need almost, I would say, more than 6 minutes to on the fastest climbers in the world to get themselves up there.
Sean, it's true, the gap's come down significantly. We had 1,400 metres of 10%. We've got 7.5 kilometres of well over that kind of gradient. And within that very short 1,400 metres, they've lost a minute and a half, nearly 2 minutes.
Yes, well, I think it was just the battling and the fighting for position getting onto this climb. And, on the climb itself, they're going to lose a bit more. But, 4.5 minutes, they should have enough. But we see there, Trotnik is starting to come to the front here and set a pace, and if he starts riding, give it full on gas in the earlier part of the climb, it could become a very tight one. But I still think with 4.5 minutes, some of the guys out in the breakaway will be able to continue on. And when you're early in the stage race as well, if you're in the end of a third week of the race or into the third week of a race, fatigue would be a big problem. When you're out in a breakaway like the guys, the 8 men today, then you're going to really fatigue and tire in the end. But I think they'll be pretty fresh, the guys in the breakaway, all the time. Although they've had a difficult day, they should have enough in the tank to go all the way and get the job done and go for the stage honours.
Confirmation of the points, and indeed they're mirrored by the bonuses. Bayer, Soto and Carmajan picking up the points, 3, 2 and 1. Indeed, there is your mountain provisional at the moment, and it means that Bayer now on 5 points. We've had 2 climbs today. He was second in the first of our climbs. He's now gone into the virtual lead of the King of the Mountains competition. If Bayer finishes our final test today, which is category 1, it could secure that jersey for a couple of days, I imagine. Here it is. This is what we're dealing with. 6.5% coming into the Picot, and then all of a sudden it kicks up rather nastily. There's an 18% section on one of the hairpins in the middle. Doesn't last that long, so it's quite an even climb, but the 18% late on extends over about 600 or 800 metres. It's nasty. We have 3 hairpins at the very last. The last turn, by the way, is 140 metres from the line. It's a proper test, and the question is, Magnus, is 4 minutes and 16 seconds enough? It's very much closing down, this gap.
I don't think it is, and judging by the pace in the peloton here as well, this time gap is going to continue to tumble all the way into to the bottom of the Picón Blanco. And so for me, yeah, it's possible that it could be close, that one of these guys could hold on, but I still think it's favour peloton, and some of the riders in here, and judging, looking at the riders and the teams that are at the front driving this on right now, there are a couple of teams in here who have got their eyes set on this climb and trying to win the stage.
Sean, it's halved the gap in quite short order. We're on a non-categorised climb, and rather cruelly so, because it's slightly longer than the test they've just engaged with. We haven't got here we are, 7.4 kilometres is the Picón Blanco. This is not the foot of it, by the way. That comes in about 7 kilometres time, so I think they've just maybe distracted us a little bit with the graphic. This is the sort of foothills of it. Carmajan decides to go for it again. He's testing them constantly and demanding answers, Sean, and this is because the gap's closing down and he needs as much of a cushion getting into the final climb as he can possibly get.
Yes, well, that is the problem in the breakaway, as I just mentioned. You have guys here who are thinking this climb is going to be too difficult against his companions in the breakaway here. So they're trying to get away quite a bit out from the final climb, the steep section, which is roughly about that 7 kilometres uphill, and that's causing the problem as well. The advantage is coming down if they continued on walking together as they have been all day. But yeah, different interests and different orders from the director sportive to different riders here in the breakaway, and that's why we see the attacks as we see a fall here.
Bora involved again. My goodness. And it doesn't rain, it just pours. It's Piccoli who's involved here from Israel Cycling. Don't forget Cataford, his teammate, yesterday sustained a crash which has taken him out of the race with a broken collarbone. Xander Armé is also here from Team Quebecer, and there it is. Not much road space because they're pacing on, and it gets a variation in pace as well, Magnus. Is not what you want. Oh, goodness me.
No, that just looked like there was a momentary lapse of concentration where someone touched the wheel and that caused a crash. So, at this point in the race, everyone is now looking to move up and looking to make sure that they're in the right position ahead of some of these narrow roads and the climbing that's coming up. And there's always that bit of a fight for position. And when the riders are tired as well, they start making these little mistakes, and when they start looking around for their teammates and so on, it's so easy to overlap a wheel and get caught on it.
Xander Armé also hampered. This man, Carmajan, he's just constantly asking the question. He's got a big one to ask of himself. Can he get up the Picon that is still up ahead of him? And it looks like they're going to allow him to just have a little bit of rain at the moment. Just hanging around at the back, doing his thing, is Kenny Anderson, not panicking, just getting a feed in at the moment by the looks of things. Not sure whether he's got full control of his bars. Let's have a look. Yes, he has. Good lad. I'm just doing my commissaire thing now. 13.6 kilometres to go. Magnus, you're about to depart as you'll be on the sofa today, but a great prospect, a great finale here, and you can't call it at the moment.
No, you can't. It's definitely going to be an interesting one, and what a battle we got. Are these guys going to make it, or are we going to see any of the favourites really going for the stage as well? So it's all to play for here.
Thanks, Magnus. We'll be hearing more from him on the sofa a little bit later on. Sean, we've got a battle royal here, 3 minutes and 49. It just nudged very briefly down to 3 minutes and 24, and it looks like it may well just be expanding again, but this is measured to Carmajan, don't forget, not to his group of compadres at the moment. Just watching him disappear around the corner, out of sight maybe, but not out of mind.
Well, is it watching him out of sight or watching him fry out there? We can see here the way they're riding together, and if they continue on doing that over the next number of kilometres before we get to the final climb, so this 5 kilometres, just leave them hang out there, continue on riding together in the rest of the breakaway, and that will soften them up for the final climb certainly.
Well, the pace has been knocked back here. Omar Freire coming to the fore here, the Spanish champion, dead centre of the road. Team Quebecer are also here. They're on the radio. That's just beaming back to base, as you saw. Just quantifying what's gone on behind them, I guess. I'm not sure whether there was a request to knock it off because of some of the falling here. I don't think so. The pace was already up. Interesting to see Astana nicely embedded here with Alexander Vlasov to think about. Jon Izagirre can go well on these kind of inclines, but I always wonder whether those days are behind him. You never know. Meanwhile, Ineos Grenadiers with Bernal, Carapaz and Adam Yates will want to make some noise today. Yates, I would have thought, after the tumble yesterday outside of the 3 kilometre mark, he was mid-pack away from his teammates and got caught out, I'm afraid, and ceded 30-odd seconds. And in fact, I think that's he over to the right-hand side of the road, left-hand side of pictures as you look at it, unzipped as he is and ready to go for it. 11.5 kilometres from home. It's back out to 4 minutes and 2 to this man, don't forget, to the peloton, so still one assumes about 15 seconds further back you find those who are part of that breakaway, and he's on this test right now. It's not, Sean, we remind everyone, the climb yet. That's still to come.
Yes, it is. There's still a number of kilometres to go, and we can see back in the main peloton, the pace was very high for a while, and we can see the reason now, because it is a little bit of a complicated one. It's up and down, so the teams were trying to just position their leader, but it's settled down a lot now, and we can see that just on the front of the peloton the teams are looking, seeing where their leader is situated, and waiting. And how long, the question will be now in the peloton. Will they have a team that want to take it up to make it very difficult for the other contenders and put some of them in difficulty? But we can see here it's just waiting for the moment, but there's lots of time left here to do something in the main peloton, because we're not on the final climb of the day as yet.
No, we're not. The way they found 2 minutes in very short order, Sean, I'm just wondering whether they believe they've had the measure of the breakaway now, and they're starting to just ponder their assault. It could be that the stage win is still up for grabs from somebody from the pack.
No.
Well, there you are. There's the short answer. Thanks for the debate.
I said it 15 minutes ago, and I'm continuing to say no, Callison.
There we are. Just nail it to the mast, Sean. 10.4 kilometres. I love that. Straight back in my court, then. Here we are. 4 minutes and 17 back to the red jersey on Primož Roglič, who started the day as out-and-out favourite. But we had to shred that when our breakaway went up the road, and they've been playing with us all day, and the pack. And Lilian Carmajan now is making a good fist of this. He's got 13 seconds. That's not going to be enough by the time we hit the big test of the day. Sean, having a climb of such magnitude so early on in the race, I mean, I love it, but I'm not sure all the riders will.
No, some they like that. They can get just into the rhythm of racing very quickly. Others need a couple of days. So different riders need different sorts of a route in the earlier part of a 3-week tour. But they know that from a long time. So being ready is something, and that means with your training block, what races you do beforehand, all of that. So you're in pretty much your top condition in the earlier part of the race, because you have to be on this one, and just get on with it. And we can see Kalmerjan here, I think he's thinking back to his stage he won the tour out of a breakaway, try and ride away and go it alone, but he is having a difficult time here. We can see he's just dangling out in front, and the rest of the breakaway are still riding away there, sharing the pace setting on the front of the 7 riders, and get to the climb, and he will have difficulty holding on. And yeah, there's a lot of experience up here. Kalmerjan, he's a stage winner in the tour. Kenny Ellison, a Vuelta stage winner. Tarame, also a stage winner, let's not forget, in the Vuelta back a long time ago, also in the Giro. So those guys have to get the experience, but on a climb like this one, it's all about the legs. You have to have got the shape, the fitness, and the power to finish it off at the end of the day out of a breakaway.
Sean, it's also the case that it's what's gone before, and yet more transition racing at the moment. As you can see, they're just catching up with the camera bike here. Struggles to get round the corner. A little bit of a technical descent, 9.1 kilometres to go, 4 minutes and 12. That's to Kalmerjan. Now has an 18-second advantage over the 7 compadres from that breakaway. It depends on what's gone before. You have to, if you're looking at Palmares, you have to kind of quantify what the days were in advance of those performances as well. It's been extremely hot, very, very wearing. We had a modest test in terms of distance, 166.7 kilometres. Today, over 200, introducing us, no wonder they paced themselves, introducing us to a punishing test, which Kalmerjan will be on the foot of in a very few moments. He's coming through town right now. There'll be a race by the pack to get through here as well, because they don't want anything silly to happen on any of the corners. And then he's going to turn onto the mountain road, which will take him up to the top. And glory today, he will hope. He has a 13-second margin on his chasers. It might well be a little bit more than that by the looks of things. 14 now, and 4 minutes and 6 is the gap. He takes the turn, and he's putting in a big one here as well. Here come those who were sharing the breakaway. Big hash signs here to make sure that they're fully aware. You want to drift to the left-hand side of the road to open up the corner, but there's some high curbing there as well that you have to be careful of. And it's a bit of a more gnarly road on the approach and indeed the beginning of this climb. Now, this is 6.5%, don't forget, at the beginning. Not quite on there yet. We usually have it announced fully, but I think Kalmerjan is just about to hit it. We're still not there just for the time being. So these guys will get a pace up, and you might well see it seated within the 3-minute mark as they come through town and want a clear view of what lies ahead of them, which is a horrible test that this man is taking on right now. Here he goes. Now this is 6.5%, and this is the easy bit, Sean. It doesn't get any easier than this. It gets a lot tougher very, very quickly.
Yes, well, it's all the way for 7 kilometres is difficult. It does hit up to 18% in the middle of the climb, and then at the very top as well it goes to 18%. But he's on the easier part at the moment. 6.5%, then it goes up to 9%, 10%, and then it kicks into that 18%, as I said, about 4 kilometres into the climb. So it is a real killer of a one, and it is a major climb. So early in the race, and now the question is who is going to be able to finish it off out of the breakaway. And going back to the peloton, it'll be interesting to see what will happen when they come onto these earlier slopes. Will they be a team that will really just put on a blistering pace, and that will be the difficult one then for some of the GC men, if it's really very, very fast in the earlier kilometres of the climb, because 7 kilometres plus, it's a long one.
Here we are, we're at our final test, our peak today. It's the Picón Blanco, the white spike, if you will. These are the slightly benign opening tests in terms of the ramps. Movistar won a big piece of today. Astana are not to be denied either, I don't think. UAE want to play the game as well. De la Cruz coming up. Raf Miker also getting himself into position. Bernal now just being guided beautifully up to the front. Wants to keep it sensible. Interestingly as well, our leader of the young riders classification, Baggioli, very well placed for De Koning Quickstep in the sort of green polka dots, it kind of looks like. Here's the transition for them. They're coming through town right now. Now this is where they have to race to get to that gnarly road, that goatee road, as Juanto Flecha used to talk of. They're 9 kilometres away, so not an enormous distance, 2 kilometres separating themselves and those up front. And the man up front at the moment is Calmejean. His gap was over 22 seconds. It's down to 14, as you can see. The pennant men here doing their thing, trying to warn everybody of the technical nature of these turns, and they are. You go into a little bowl here. It picks up, you remember. Then you see those chevron signs, loud and proud, to announce a pesky corner. It's a right-hander. You want to drift left, but there's high curbing there. Do take care. This is that point. It's going to be a big compression. You've got a lot dive. Oh, it's a shame we cut away from it. A lot of dive bombing, I imagine, as well into that corner. Let's hope everyone gets through safely as we look at Calmejean at the moment. There'll be a big compression back there. They were racing into it, and it looks like his gap is all bar done, and so is Jetse Bol by the looks of things. If he's suffering on the early ramp, Sean, he's going to suffer an awful lot more further on.
Yes, well, anybody is suffering now. You'd expect him to suffer a bit later on. But again, remember, this team a number of years ago, we said, there was a man, he was finished a number of times and he kept on coming back and won the stage. So you never know. You never know out of a breakaway. Madrazo, I was just trying to come on the name there, but he could just get into the rhythm out of a small group. That is possible. But he looks like he's in a little bit of difficulty too early. And we can see here, the race is on now, and they know that the gap is coming down a bit, so they want to push on a bit as well. 3:30 of an advantage, still with 6.5 to go. What will happen back in the peloton, that is going to be an interesting one. But we did see onto the climb, we see Van Baarle there. He was getting Bernal in a real good position just to get into the climb in the top 4 or 5 places of that main peloton.
There is the red jersey, Primož Roglič in a terrific position. Just looking for the polka dots actually of Sepp Kuss, who would normally be his right-hand man at a moment such as this. Carapaz with his golden helmet, dead centre of the road, not too stressed just for the time being. Baggioli going brilliantly in that young riders competition, maybe a reach out for some even greater glory, we shall see. There he is in the green and white. He's running overall, by the way, Baggioli in 6th place, so he'll be hyper motivated to find some time today on the rivals overall. Adam Yates well positioned as well. Suspected it will be him, not least because of the disappointment from yesterday. Suggestion as well of a little spot on of moisture upon the camera lens here. I think it's probably just a dropped bidon. Calmejean's back within the pack and they're starting to pick it up now. Who is going to be? Joe Dombrowski wants to have a dig, and we're already seeing those who are suffering, and no surprise, I guess. Tobias Bayer just up ahead of us for Alpecin. Jetse Bol is here. Soto's starting to struggle as well. So it's thinning down good and proper amongst those out front. Meanwhile, same deal you could say from the favourites, Sean. It's too wide coming into these gnarly country roads, and they're about to hit the major inclines themselves.
Yes, and we can see it's De Koning Quickstep, Zdeněk Stybar, who is setting the pace here on the front, relatively calm in the main peloton. But how long will that last for? That is the question. There will be a team that will push on, and it looks like Astana are starting to move up here on the right-hand side of the peloton. But nobody committing with with a rider and giving it full on here. They're just holding position. You can see here that it's not rapidly fast at the moment.
Genetz has done his thing for Groupama France des Jeux. Shame they didn't do their thing yesterday for Arnaud Demar. Was it his fault? Who knows? It was a mess, their lead out. Meanwhile, they start to just grind into this one. Luis Leon Sanchez, always a good pace setter there for Astana in their familiar blue. And they're all looking at each other. Elisson's looking around as well, as if expecting to be mugged at any moment. I think Elisson is probably amongst the favourites from this group to take it. Who would be your pick? This 5 that we find at the front right now, Sean?
Well, Elisson, you would expect, but Joe Dombrowski as well. He is certainly a real good climber. Tarame, he is also capable of doing this sort of a finish. But yeah, it's very difficult, to call here out of the breakaway at the moment, because they're pretty much all capable of winning it. Out of the 5 here, I think when you're here in this shake up out of the 8-man breakaway, that proves that you still have quite good legs. But there's always somebody that's going to be that bit better, and you can see King Kenny, he's just looking around there trying to get the others to come to the front, to keep the pace up a bit, because they are being told that this is a situation now where the peloton is not that far back, so keep on pushing just to be sure that you can hold on and stay out in front and get fight for the stage victory.
Fabulous drive being put in here for Bahrain Victorious, and Mikkel Lander is tucked in third wheel, as you can possibly see. We thought he may well have an investment today. Looks like it's going to be. Drop Bidon just speared there, spraying the camera as well, just failing to make it to the side of the road, thankfully of no consequence. Adam Yates looks fresh, Sean. He's determined today quite clearly, unzipped and ready to go.
Yes, well, he looks comfortable here, and you would expect him to be, at this point, what they've been doing in the main peloton, he should be okay at the moment. But again, they're quite a bit further down here, and when the real battle will start between the big favourites, when you see somebody putting in that big huge attack, that's when you see who is feeling good out of the big favourites. For the moment, when they're riding that strong tempo, you'd expect those guys to be able to stay there in the top 10-15 riders without any difficulty.
Here's a perfect view back down the wall, and you see Hugh Carthy in the pink here, just starting to impose himself. Just remind us how good he is, particularly on ramps such as this. Adam Yates, I think, would possibly be amongst the favourites for today. When you just looked at the profile at the top of it, it's for everyone else to try and wrestle themselves into position. Best places to be out front, and out front is where this man wants to be. Carmajan is gone again. Elisson has been looking around as if he's waiting for somebody to attack. It's Carmajan once more, with Joe Dombrowski, a much bigger frame, who just gets back at it, and it looks like it's all done for Amos Keto, who looks like in this company he's struggling just a little bit for Cairo Oral, but you never know. This could be some hijinks being played here today. Tara May out of the saddle and back in for the in that tree frog green helmet of his trade team Wanty. Meanwhile, back through here, you look at this group, and some fabulous names here, including Roglic himself. He's marshalling and monitoring everything, Sean, as he should.
Yes, and as you would expect, because we can see here, it's the Bahrain guys who are setting a pace here, but it's not an infernal pace whatsoever. You look at the number of riders here, we have 50 plus riders maybe, so that tells that there is a little bit of an up in pace, but again, it's not an infernal pace, as they say. So a lot of riders able to stay in there, and until we get that point where there will somebody put in an attack, or a team puts a real good climber working for his leader and really just turns up the full gas, well then that's when we will see who is good from the big favourites in this Spain peloton.
What is nice for me is to see Fabio Aru up towards the fore in his final race, we remind you, before retirement. It's Sergio Henao who's just dragging him into position for the time being. There's Sepp Kuss just in the polka dot jersey, not at the fore just for the time being. And the fifth hour, the average pace has tumbled down because of the climbs that we've been dealing with, but still the average for the day just shy of 40 kilometres per hour. It's been quick, Sean, despite the terrain.
Yes, it has been quick, and we've seen the breakaway. They've been really pushing strong all day. Anytime we went to the breakaway during the stage, they were working real well together. You could see they were going at a very fast rate, and for that reason, we have a very high average. And the peloton as well. They had to work quite hard, although Jumbo Visma, they allowed the breakaway to just pull away very gradually and allowed that, 8+ minutes. But now we can see here it's just it's going to be a fight here on the steep part. It is just about keep the pressure on and see who can follow, and Dombrowski is just trying to burn everybody else out and just test the legs of the riders that he's got in his wheel.
Well, he's doing a fantastic job at the moment. There goes Amosketa just disengaged. Carmajan's just up ahead of him as well, who's rolled the dice several times, but I'm afraid it's not come up. Double sixes for him. Meanwhile, out ahead, Joe Dombrowski doing a fantastic job, and tucked in on his wheel is Ryan Taramay. Taramay has not taken the head at all. He's letting the others do it. He's following on. That could be very clever. Kenny Elizont, called King Kenny by King Kelly here. I would never have dared do that, but he's doing brilliantly, Sean. He's running in third place at the moment, the little guy. But the way that Dombrowski has wrestled control of this for the time being shows great spirit, matched by the crowd here. Great to see them here, and what a battle we've got here, Sean.
Yes, well, it's a battle now for the stage certainly, and possibly for the race leadership as well, depending on what happens in this next 4 kilometres. But Dombrowski, he knows that it's time to start pushing on, and when you're on the front on a steep section like this with the guys in your wheel, they haven't much an advantage. Although when you're following somebody, it does help a bit. It's not like on the flat roads when you ride full on and you sit in the wheel of somebody. It makes a huge difference, the watts that you can and the power that you can conserve, or you can keep in reserve as such. But they know here the 3 now out in front, and they're being told by the directors as well back in the team cars that, okay guys, if you've got the legs now, you need to keep on pushing here, because the advantage is coming down. Keep a very, very strong pace, and try and hold it all the way to the finish.
Into the last 4 kilometres, you can see the banner that's been put up here, and finally Taramay comes through here. Ellison at the back. Ryan Taramay from Wanty. What a fantastic result it would be for them, and indeed for the entire team, as well as of course for him personally. A team that's picked up the top class ranking. Of course, they decided to go for the ultimate, the top division of cycling. It's an expensive thing to do, to roster for all of these races, and they were not the richest team, but it's great to see them functioning beautifully here, and all support to them. Intermarché Wanty as they are, with Rain Taramay with a great chance for today. Kenny Alessandra still think he's the choice. Magnus picked him earlier on, right at the very beginning of before we came to this climb, then had his worries that they may well get caught, but Alessandra playing it clever, and of the 3 of them, the lighter man, great power, and possibly with the best Palmares. No disrespect to Rain Taramay. I think the newest Palmares, let's put it that way, because he, of course, having done a great job in the Vuelta and the Giro in the past. But he's riding cleverly, and that comes with age and experience, of which he has plenty. So let's see. A lot of struggling going down here, Sean.
Yes, well, it's expected that you will have riders starting to suffer here. We can see World Pools is the man in the front here, setting the pace, and on this steep section now, you can see it's getting a bit more difficult. Riders starting to lose contact out of this main peloton quickly, and it's going to be a tight one. But I still believe that the breakaway up front, they still have enough of an advantage. They still have enough left in the legs that they can go all the way and fight it for stage victory. And the 3 men we have in front, of course, Dombrowski as well. He won a stage in the Giro, was forgetting about that. So all the men up here front, they have won stages already in big 3-weekers.
Big move just starting to suggest itself here for UAE Team Emirates. Are they starting to come up on towards the heads? Yep, just guiding themselves in. Ralph Michael and David De La Cruz potentially, and here we go. Well, it's Dombrowski once again, and it looks like Kenny Elissonde is the man that's struggling just for the time being. Ryan Tama stays with 3.3 kilometres to go. Now, we have dealt with 18%. This eases a little bit back down towards 10, but it will pick up again in a short while, and he's gone for it. Ryan Tama now decides that he's going to reach out for glory. This is fantastic. A series of little sprints to break the rhythm on what's a reasonably even climb, Sean, although we find ourselves on a little step just about to announce yet more penury for these guys.
Yes, well, it's an even climb when you get over the first bit, but it's an even at about 10%, and that is exactly. That is serious. And then it kicks up, as you said, that 18% which they have been over, and then it goes back down to 10%, and then just a bit over 9%. So it's nothing easy. Those guys, they make it look easy the way they're attacking it here out of the breakaway, and then that final of 18% again. This is a horrible one, and if you're there in the breakaway and you're just on the limit trying to hang on, as we can see Kenny Elissonde doing there, just trying to cling on. Or if you're in this group here of the big favourites, you're not on a good day and you have to try and do everything to stay there with the leaders. Well then, as we can see by Jolie here, this is the perfect example, paying all the way now to the finish for this guy.
Very much so. He's not alone as well. He's in good company. Sepp Kuss also struggling today. That's a bit of a surprise to me, Sean. You too?
Well, we know Sepp Kuss, he's a brilliant climber, and some days he can put in these really super performance, and other days he gets dropped relatively early, so he can blow a little bit hot and cold, and that is his problem, to become a leader of a team, because you have to be present every day, and that is what Sepp Kuss haven't managed to pull out yet, to be everyday consistent in a big 3-weeker.
Age before beauty, and Tara Meza kicking off. Meanwhile, it's kicking off down here. We said UAE would have an interest in reaching out for today, and that's precisely what they're doing. David De La Cruz is their Spanish choice and principal for today, but 2 minutes and 24, too much to bridge surely with 2.6 kilometres to go. I think it is. It's about those out front. Taramay and Dombrowski. Kenny Elissonde is struggling ever so slightly at the moment, just off the back of that trio. When it evens up a little bit, it's not irretrievable for Kenny Elissonde, and we still have that 18.5% to deal with in a short while, and it's accounted for some very, very accomplished riders, as you have seen. This is fantastic, Sean. We're seeing some real battles amongst those further down the order as well, and a lot of names have been trimmed off at the very first time of asking. The first big peak of this Vuelta is starting to take prisoners.
Yes, well, we can see the prisoners that is taken. They're not the big overall contenders. Pretty much everybody in there. Sepp Kuss, as we mentioned, he is here to look after Primož Roglič when we get into the big mountain stages, and he is probably the most surprising one to see him in a bit of difficulty on this climb, because he's a super climber. But again, we talked about that, the earlier part of a stage race, day 3, when you get this real difficult finish, mountaintop finish, some guys, they're not ready they're not in that rhythm of racing, and they can catch them out.
De La Cruz is reaching out here. He was guided in position. Rafa Micah working extremely well for him, and he's having a dig, and that is nice to see. That shows great ambition out of a pack that includes all of the big names. 13% sounds easy. 14, it's starting to pick up. I think that is for the guys out front, not the bike that we're on at the moment. But it's absolutely punishing. And look at the road surface as well, Sean. Very, very heavy, gnarly surface is just going to add to the torture here.
Yes, well, it's everything is against the riders here. The percentage, the surface, and we can see the riders, that are just starting to lose contact. We can see the man from Ineos there, Navarez. He's in just in a world of pain, trying to just cling on here in this main peloton. And we can see De La Cruz there, good effort. Yates rides across them. Yates looks, very comfortable the way he's riding here, just having a look look over his right shoulder to see who's there in his wheel, and now it's just a little bit of waiting time, knock it off again as we go 2 kilometres for the leaders out front.
Yeah, he's got Lander, who has teammates around him. Oh, is that Lander starting to struggle? Let's wait and see. Just weaving over the other side of the road. Not quite sure just yet. It looks... I'm not sure. We'll have a look in a moment when we get down for some heads up. 1900 metres remaining for those out front. Tara May has just broken clear of Dombrovski. That was our last view of it. We still wait to see. Elisond apparently is now detailed at 5 seconds down, and Lander just could not follow the wheel of his own teammate here. It's not going well for Lander, potentially. Yates, as you say, Sean, he looks like a man who's about to pounce here. This is fantastic. Centre of the road.
Yes, but we can see Lander there in the very centre as well, just to the left-hand side of the Yates in the direction they're going. So he looks okay for the moment, but Yates looks comfortable there, looking around, waiting to see what is to be done here. It's a time
it's Carapaz,
now. Maybe,
Sean.
Yes, Carapaz starting to lose ground, but it's proving that it's a difficult one for some riders. As we forecasted, we could see some guys, GC contenders, getting into difficulty.
Well, the Olympic champion clearly carrying a bit of fatigue out of Tokyo. I didn't want to call it earlier on because I was looking for the golden helmet and almost misnumbered. But of course, it's only gold on the front, and at the moment, he is not at the front at all. Here is Carapaz just getting himself back in. It is a golden helmet, but only heads up, I'm afraid. Oh, my life. This has been a real brute. Caicedo also struggling back here. Meanwhile, racked across the front, you're always seeing Adam Yates. Valverde's having a good run as well, Sean.
Yes, well, he's there just sitting, talking to Miguel Angel Lopez there at the moment, and you can see, there's nobody committing at the moment to push on at the very high pace they were a little bit further down the climb. It seemed to have, knocked off a bit, and we see Carapaz getting back in there because it is a slowing up front between the main favourites.
Ryan Taramay looks like he is heading for victory here. He went to the Saska Tour in the Czech Republic and came third in that race. Also in the Nationals, of course, time trialist as he is in Estonia, national champion again. How many times has that been? He's long in the tooth, but also long in experience, 34 years of age. He has, of course, won stages on the Vuelta before, but it was a long time ago. 10-year gap, Sean, for Taramay, the last time he won, and it was on a peak as well, a very peaky day. Likewise, he got the beating of some very big names then, including Wout Poels and Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome as well. And when you hear those names and you realise that he's still riding, he's riding himself into a happy position at the moment. And now it's time for those who wanted to get something out of the day to dig in for glory, Sean.
Yes, well, we can see there, that the pace was definitely knocked off a bit. So, the riders going to try,
Navarro, I think it is.
Just go for everything here. Just go for broke and see what will happen. And out front, Taramay, as you said, he's got the experience, and he's had a few years where it's been a bit lean for him. But in this breakaway, I'm sure he was saying, well, if I'm feeling good, and that's what it is about. If you're feeling good coming onto the final climb, well, then you know that you can be a match and you can go for the stage victory.
Yeah, it was Cabedo, in fact, but there indeed is the golden helmet once again of Richard Carapaz. He keeps getting back on, he keeps getting dropped, and I think we heard about pecking order and how it was going to stack up, and right now Adam Yates is making a big statement. He may well have lost out yesterday, but he's grinding a lot of big names here into the ground, and Lander, it's not to be his day. He's disappeared. Meanwhile, so is this man up to the top, Ryan Taramay. Never expected this, even from that group. I didn't think that he would have the legs, but he has. He's got the attitude as well, and right now he's only 700 or so metres away from a glorious bookending of his career almost, I imagine. His first win on the Vuelta back in 2011. He's been around a long time. He's been around the block as well, and he knows how to put his opponent's heads on the block, and indeed chop it off by the looks of things. He's going to have a fantastic result here, and in fact it's a handsome gap back to those who can deny him. Here's the peloton, 2 minutes and 28, and this is Carapaz still struggling. He's got a golden bike here, but it's looking worse than bronze at the moment for him, Sean.
Yes, well, he is. He's been struggling now for quite a while, and you know, the moment there's an acceleration in this front group, he seems to be in difficulty. Then it slows a little bit. He got back in, and again when there was an attack there, losing contact. But we can see here as Yates is setting the pace on the front. He's not really setting a full-on pace at the moment, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Taramay, he's going to get his stage honours, of course, but he was further down the GC standings. He was at 128, so it's going to be interesting to see where the other ones are going to finish here out of the breakaway, because there was a lot of the guys much closer up in the GC standings, and it's going to be a big battle. You know, Kenny Ellison, he was at 111. Dombrowski was a bit further down again, so it's an interesting one. You know, what will happen with the overall standings and the red jersey.
And it's I guess a day of what might have been for Valverde. It's been a huge day for Ryan Taramay. It's a massive day for Intermarché Wanty-Gobert as well. They are a team that I think have bravery as their alma mater, and this man has come to the line and he is going to take a spectacular win. His career has been a long one, and today it's been a very long one, 202 kilometres with a spiteful climb at the end, but this man has ironed it out, and in so doing he's scorched those who are out in the breakaway with him. I could not be happier for him after such efforts. This is a magnificent result for a veteran. Let's not forget, you always get fairy tales when it comes to the Grand Tours. Some of them are more sweet than others, but today he's done it for the old guard, he's done it for himself, and he's done it for his team. Bravery personified. That was amazing. That was absolutely fabulous, Sean.
Yes, well, what a ride, and you know, this turned out to be the strongest man, as we can see. Dombrowski, he won second on the road, but you know, a great victory for the team. Intermarché Wanty-Gobert, you know, they got a stage in the Giro. Tour of France was difficult for them, but you know, get another stage here in the big 3 week. Or what a performance by Taramay. And yeah, as you said, you know, later in his career as well, suffered a little bit of it performance-wise in the last number of years, as we can see. Kenny here coming over in third place at 37 seconds down.
Ryan Taramay indeed beats Dombrowski here. Spectacular performance by the American. Kenny Ellison in third place, and now it's minor places, and you may well see some of the break get tagged here. Let us wait and see. Soto, I think, may well have already been absorbed, and we're in the final sequence for some very big names who could have had the stage win. We didn't quite get two battles rolling on here, but the clock is rolling against these guys. I don't think Taramay is going to be in the lead. He might be. Bonus seconds at the line. In fact, I think he now just has taken the lead of this race. So Valverde is that comes to the line. Taramay is our victor today, but it's about what might have been, I think, for some of these guys further back down the line. Adam Yates just doesn't have quite the response here. It's just a question of bragging rights amongst the rest. Enric Mas, Luis, Miguel Angel Lopez as well would have hoped for more out of today. Valverde, I think, may have had his head, but it wasn't to be. A breakaway got there. Roglic crosses the line, a minute and 50 down, Sean, or thereabouts. These are big gaps, and let's see who else is struggling as we wait for them all to come home, Sean. Here comes Carthy round the corner now.
Yes, we can see there's quite a few of the big favourites not there. We can see Landa also. I don't think he's finished yet, but yeah, you can see there the gaps appearing everywhere, and riders just on the limit, totally empty coming over the line.
I think that was Amos Ketu who finally made it home. In fact, here he is, number 73. Sad for him that it wasn't to be. This is Carapaz trying to put a little fire out, as you'll see him coming around the corner any moment now. Carapaz, what a day, Sean, and what a year. I guess an Olympic gold medal has a price, and we're seeing it being writ large on our screens right now.
Yes, well, I think Carapaz has been going, pretty much full gas for quite a long time. Tour of Switzerland, then the Tour of France, Olympics, all of that. Not surprising, it's catching up.
Oh, breathless day, and still we wait. It's a cruel finale, this, Sean, and you look back down through the ranks and you see those who had high hopes until today, I guess.
Yes, well, it's not surprising that we see gaps appearing here, and in this earlier part of the race, more so, there's riders going to suffer. It's one of these finishes. When you take 7 kilometres, the gradient was here. Not surprising that some of the GC riders were losing ground here, and it's a normal one. This man here, Kuss, of course, we can see Kreiswick there as well. Those are riders that expect to be able to stay pretty much close, very close to the finish with that leading group, if not with it.
Indeed. Well, maybe biding some time for a little bit later on. Luis Leon Sanchez has done plenty of work for his teammates today to try and tee up the likes of Vlasov, but it all came down to Ryan Taramay in the end. What a wonderful result for him, and not least for him, Sean, but for his team as well.
Yes, well, for the team, it's first year in World Tour, of course, for Intermarché 1T, and a good Giro winning a stage. Tour of France, they were struggling. There was a lot of talk in Belgium. The director sportive, Hilaire Van Schuurn, was giving out that they weren't, making enough of an effort in the Tour. Now they're here in the Vuelta, winning a stage very early, which is also important, and that is great to see for a smaller team. And I've just seen there Lando, I missed him, he was in that GC group, so with that different colour jersey, he's saved himself, because he seemed to be over the line with the other GC contenders.
Gosh. Well, if you're going to struggle, there's no more public way of that being seen than in a cycling race. It doesn't matter what bravado you have, you've got to deliver today. Ryan Taramay has done precisely that for Intermarché 1T Gobert, and he has beaten some big names who suffered, let's remind you, on this only stage 3 of La Vuelta. What a remarkable day. Well, they had to search long and hard to find this climb. It's not been used for that many years. In fact, even in the Tour of Burgos, I think its debut came in 2017. But what a test it turned out to be. I'm glad they found the route to lead to our enjoyment today. Ryan Taramay takes the day at a Dombrowski, Elisond, Carmajan, Enric Mas, Miguel Angel Lopez it was behind Mas, with Roglic, Yates, Landa and Ciccone, your top 10. Roglic well and truly embedded, but Ryan Taramay is the leader of the race. Not only a win, but a red jersey, Sean. That's got to be good.
Yes, well, that's what we talked about, into the stage when the breakaway looked like the advantage was going to be enough to hold on out there, and with the guys, very close in the GC standings, it was going to be a question, who would be winning the stage? Would it be will the rider that win the stage would also go into the race leadership? And what a day for Taramay and the team.
It's absolutely wonderful. Here it is, confirmation. Taramay leads La Vuelta. Intermarché 1T Gobert have a hero. They've got a leader's jersey as well. How wonderful is that? Oh, tears indeed issued by the day's winner, and no surprise. Huge moment for him. Possibly, I think will go down as the most memorable of his career. Thanks to Sean Kelly and indeed to Magnus Baxted and Brian Smith. You'll be hearing from them on the sofa. If you are indeed enjoying the GCN app, the rest of you will stay with me for this post-race analysis of what has been a spectacular day and a great result for Ryan Taramay. Well, we've got Adam Yates. We've wrestled to the ground. Looked nice and sprightly today. Freshest of Ineos Grenadiers, I must add. Let's hear what he's got to say.
So Adam Yates has joined us today. Thanks for coming, Adam. Tell me a little bit on that difficult last climb you just did.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty disappointed after yesterday losing time and a silly crash. So today I tried to, I really wanted to do something. I tried 1 or 2 times, but there's a block headwind up here, so no matter what you did, you weren't going very fast. So yeah, here's what it is.
Still, you look really comfortable up there. One of the best in the first group there.
I wouldn't say comfortable, but
no, maybe that's the wrong word. Yeah.
In the end, I've trained well, prepared well. I really struggled after the Olympics with the jet lag and stuff, so it took me a week or 2 just to get back to the, into the routine. And yeah, here we are. So I just hope it continues.
Seeing today's final, may we decide that you are the leader of the Ineos Grenadiers pack then?
Not really. I mean, like we said from the beginning, it's we got cards to play. And yeah, I lost some time yesterday, but I'm still in the game, so we'll just keep plugging away, and hopefully we can do something.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
So interesting to hear jet lag being blamed by Adam Yates, and who's very upset, of course, to be caught out by the crash yesterday. Not reaching out, and why would he, for team principal status just for the time being. He's got teammates to look after, and tonight they're going to have to look after Richard Carapaz, who had an absolute nightmare out there. Primož Roglic stays well and truly in touch, but cedes the red jersey. That will be on the shoulders of Ryan Taramay tomorrow. Sepp Kuss just coming in here, shed a bit of time today. Sepp Kuss also handing over the polka dot jersey to today's winner, who owns that as well, Ryan Taramay. This is how they came across the line. Primož Roglic in 7th place, 1 minute and 48 down, but courtesy of the advantage he had at the beginning of the day, it means that he now is within range, around the half a minute mark, down on Ryan Taramay, who leads overall. And in fact, we have Primož Roglic for a brief discussion about how the day went. It was complicated, but in the end, Ryan Taramay just really held on beautifully for that victory. Here's Primož Roglic.
Picón Blanco, tell me your first experiences.
Time trial is also survive the climb. It's hard to be everything, but yeah, it's okay. Went well, so how to say it, was I didn't have the best experiences now last times with the climbs, but yeah, today went again good, so yeah, we're optimistic.
What about that hard headwind at the end?
Yeah, you see, it's windy, it's still 10 degrees, but it feels like winter after yesterday, so yeah, it was windy all day.
Was it a goal just to keep the jersey today, or didn't you care for the team right now?
Yeah, as you obviously see, we didn't care. It was more our guys were riding all day, and they did a super great job. Yeah, Ryan took the jersey, strongest, so yeah, it's good for us.
So then what's your feeling at the end of this day?
I'm happy, I'm happy, like I said, there's going better with the time trials last time, so yeah, I can still climb, it's nice to see.
He remains in such a chipper mood, doesn't he? He's such a gent, Primož Roglic. He doesn't shy away from any questions, and he'll be a while here at the media zone, as you can see. And in a moment, we're going to be hearing from Ryan Taramay. Not only our stage winner, but the leader of this race as well. And here he is, Ryan Taramay, hero of the day.
10 years after your first win at La Vuelta, you're here again. Did you expect it?
Actually, yes, because I have quite good shape, and I have very smart sport director Valerio Piva. And yesterday evening we speak that we try to win stage and try to take leader jersey.
From the breakaway group, when did you think you could win?
Actually, I believe it really much myself today because, like I said, I'm in the good shape. Today was all about if peloton catches or not, and when I see that we gonna do it, then I have questions how good is Joe Dombrowski and Kenny Ellison. But all others, they was really good riders, but Kenny and Joe, I know they are really big qualities, so I don't know if I can beat them. But I believe it because I already did it many times. So when I win stage in Giro, Joey was third. He was up there with me, and now we fighting again each other. So I believe really much today myself.
And not only you are the winner, but you are leading La Vuelta. How big is that?
Yeah, it's very big because I'm 34 years old and I don't have many years left to try to do this. And actually I win stage in Vuelta and Giro, but I dream a lot about leader jersey in the big tour. At least for some days enjoy and feel how it's gonna be. I was so close in Giro this year when actually Joe Dombrowski win the stage, but it was hard stage, and in Giro I was quite empty at the end, but today I did it. I'm very, very happy.
Very well done. Thank you.
And we add our congratulations to that. Remarkable performance by a remarkable rider with an undiluted sense of self-belief, as you just heard. Now we believe.